Okay, let's get started. A couple minutes late, our apologies. Welcome everybody to the 6 p.m. City Council meeting of May 7th, 2019. Let the roll call reflect that all council members are present. I've asked Vice Chair Chaburka to help us with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yes, I'm so excited to welcome Troop 4 to come up and help lead us. You can come up to the microphone if you'd like.
Whoever's going to do it.
No thanks.
Hi.
Say, please rise.
Huh?
Ask everybody to rise.
Please stand. Repeat the Pledge of Allegiance after me. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Two.
Thank you. I'm going to invite them to...
Thank you, gentlemen. Do you guys want to introduce your troop number and tell us what you're here for tonight?
Come on up.
So, hi, I'm Jimmy Woodruff. I am the quartermaster here at Troop 4. Center Patrol Leader isn't here today, but we are here to sit in on a council meeting for the Citizenship and Community Merit Badge. So that is what our troop is here to do, and we are very thankful for you guys to have us here today.
Thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Group Leader?
Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
My name is Steve Erickson. I'm a member of Troop 4 for many, many years. Troop 4 would very much like to thank the City Council and Mayor Caldwell for the generous gift of the Union Station. Last weekend, we had our 100-year celebration. There's only 3 troops in Utah that are 100 years old. We are one of them. There are only a few troops in the nation that are 100 years old. And we celebrated our 100-year anniversary last weekend. And we would very much like to thank the City Council and Mayor Caldwell for the generous gift of the Union Station. We had 150 people at the celebration, and we had a wonderful event. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you guys being here. Appreciate everything you're doing in the community. And I'm glad we have a short meeting on tap for you guys. I'm being sarcastic.
You're going to earn it tonight.
Okay, if you'll please consider joining us in a moment of silence. Thank you. Okay, our first item on our agenda is a request to be on the agenda. We have Betty Sawyer here tonight to tell us about the African American Railroad experience. This is a follow-up, and I appreciate you coming. We were invited to an event, was it 2 weeks ago?
Yes.
That highlighted this experience, and I found it fascinating, and I think you will too. Thanks for coming back.
Thank you. And to our chair, vice chair, and all of our members, mayor, staff, and guests, it's a pleasure being with you this evening to follow up. We had a reception, and when I say we, that's Project Success, along with Black Scholars United from Weber State, and we have 2 of our members here with us tonight, Shanika Sanders and Terry Hughes, and of course, the wind beneath my wings, Gerard Butch Sawyer is with us tonight as well for this activity. But we had a reception honoring African American contribution to the railroad as a part of the Spike 150 celebration. So we're glad to be able to be here tonight to share a little bit about what I've been able to learn over the last few months regarding those contributions. So I'll have a short presentation. So as a part of that, we were able to recognized the fact that African Americans were a part of the railroad experience while they were still enslaved in this country. A large majority of those workers prior to the Civil War were African Americans in those southern and some of the eastern states that were part of building the railroad. And that contribution continued during the war and right after the war as well. Just enter. Okay, so as you can see, across the southern as well as those eastern states, blacks that were enslaved were a part of that movement. And then virtually every railroad built in the South during the 19th century were 19th century were built using slave labor. During the Civil War, as you can see, even thousands more were employed in that effort. One of the things that's noted that even with this movement, we were able to find some research about different tiers of compensation for railroad workers. Whites were paid a certain amount and had certain privileges. The Chinese were paid a certain amount and had lesser privileges. Immigrants were paid a certain amount with other privileges, and blacks were the least paid and the less privileges, and they also included even physical whoopings, even during this period of time. Besides those that worked on the railroad, as a part of our Utah history and that expansion to the west, blacks continued to work on the railroad and did all kinds of jobs, sharecropping, mining, plowing, whatever it took, of course, some of those domestic responsibilities. And there were females that were part of this crew, and they did some of the hard labor as well. They weren't just doing domestic work, they were doing some of that hard labor. But we all know that not just for African Americans, but for all, this experience helped them build a sustainable family and community. One of the interesting things that I came across was the Gandhi dancers. And I don't know if any of you are familiar with that or have railroad ties, but they were the ones that were doing the cadence calls for the workers. And so in order to make the work easier and more productive, they came up with all types of work songs as a part of this. And they used sort of the African tradition of call and response. And we saw that throughout slavery. A lot of the messages were coded as well so that the foremen didn't know what they were saying or what was going on. And others they learned to do as according to what rhythm they were going to do, even the work. So certain songs meant move to the left or move to the right or lift this up or take this away. And so I came across through a folk arts website some of those actual songs where they were able to interview some of those Gandhi dancers, the callers, and were able to document some of the actual words and songs and shared that a part of that, a lot of our country music came out of some of those same traditions. I can't remember which country stars they were listing, but they were saying that one of their dads worked on the railroad and his son would come to work with him to bring water or help with sharing water with the workers, and was introduced to those Gandhi dancers and the songs. And a lot of his work ended up reflecting that experience. Keep hitting the wrong button. I'll get there one day. So again, as this movement, students, we love them. This younger generation helping us. But the Gandhi dancers, and when I heard it, I thought it was actually dancers until I read it and said, no, they weren't dancing. So, okay. As the railroad expanded across the West, there were less African Americans, less blacks that were working at that particular time, but they were still very much involved. Thank you. And as a part of our Utah history, some of these photographs may be familiar to us, but the top center are the red caps that work with Union Pacific Railroad. And then, of course, the porters and waiters in the upper left or right, depending on where you're going. I wanted to include a photo of A. Philip Randolph. He was the one that helped unionize the Pullman porters. And Ogden, Mr. Jones was the first supervisor of the union here, Pullman porters. And he still has family in this community today. And as you can see, there were female workers throughout and even into the near future. Lastly, but not least, this tradition, I had the pleasure of meeting with a couple of families of railroad workers. The evening we had our reception, Sarah McClellan was there. Her husband was a railroad worker, and that's what brought him to Utah. We also had Tommy Tucker. His dad was a cook for over 40 years with the railroad. Terry Fullwaller, he just retired 2 years ago as an engineer with Union Pacific, and he shared the challenges and the opportunities that he received from starting at the bottom and working his way up. We also had another gentleman, Terrence Frazier, who recently retired as an engineer in our Ogden community after 42 years of working on the railroad. And so the railroad provided a lot of opportunities for African Americans across the country and even in the state of Utah, and helped build what is now Ogden. Dr. Ronald Coleman, a historian at the University of Utah, his dad was a railroad worker, and he was out of Oakland, California. And when his son decided to come to Utah to go to the University of Utah, he said the first thing his dad told him was, "Don't you go to Ogden on 25th Street." And he didn't know what that meant at all. But his dad had traveled in and out of Utah for about 40 years and had some stories. And so he wanted to make sure his young son got to see another side of our community. But again, I'd like to thank you for having us. And I don't know how many of you are going to be involved in, I guess everybody. Yeah, everybody's going to be busy this weekend, right?
Oh, yeah.
And anybody going up to Promontory?
Yep.
You want my ticket? No. I'm offering it up. It's like...
I think we're going to carpool because parking's going to be tight out there.
I think so, too. So, again, thank you so much, and look forward to coming back again on another occasion, and keep up the good work.
Before you sit down, the council members, do you guys have any questions, or the mayor, any questions for Betty? Or comments?
I would just say that is fascinating, and we really appreciate you being here. And it's hyper topical with everything that's coming this weekend. And I hope everybody has some sensitivity for what actually was done and on whose backs it was accomplished by. So I appreciate you telling this story, and everybody that's going to be here. A lot of those groups you mentioned are going to be having distant family reunions, but they're telling similar stories, and I think that's really important for us to understand just what an enormous event this was and how it was built and what everybody did. So I appreciate you being here and taking the time to come enlighten a lot of us and to keep telling the story.
Yep. Thank you. We don't plan to stop this weekend. We want to continue to collect stories and get our young people involved in sharing those stories. So we brought some folders as souvenirs for you if you don't already have those. And there's a few tickets in there. You're awesome. And you can pass those to him. Some postcards to add to your collection. We do have some pins, but the ones I grabbed were all one kind, but we'll make sure we share some of those to you so you have some memorabilia from this grand event.
Chair, if I could add one more thing.
Of course.
Chief Watt told me the exact same thing when he was in Canada and got accepted to the police academy at Weber State University. He passed along that his dad said, "You can go there, but you do not go to historic or to 25th Street. That's a den of iniquity. You stay as far away from there as you can." So you have some similar ground there.
But look at it today, one of the most vibrant places in our community.
Betty, if Chief Watt's anything like the rest of us, when our parents said, "You better not go there," that was the first place we went. Hey, Betty, before you sit down, please. thanks for the event you guys put on. That was a ton of work for a lot of folks, yourself included. There were so many interesting stories that night that I'm really glad that we stayed long in the night talking. There were really, unabashed stories told that were super personal and not simple at all.
Yes.
People that are living with us right here in times where we might want to think they're not having those same challenges. So I know that your effort will continue because you've worked on that exhibit at the Union Station that shows a lot of these historical contributions from these historical people in our own community. And I was really struck that night by, for me, especially with this week happening and all of the media attention that it's starting to get, all those images that are sort of monumented in our mind, those famous images that are, so common for us to see. Well, those images don't really reflect a lot of the realities. And some of the artwork that was done a long time ago that hangs in our places that we're so proud of, it doesn't reflect some of those realities. And so it's really important that we do, right? And so thank you for doing that, or I wouldn't have known a lot of what you shared, both tonight but also the other night. And
It's our pleasure, and thank you so much.
thank you.
Thank you, Betty.
Sure appreciate you, Betty.
A lot of those murals, the two murals in the Union Station depict not only the Chinese but also the African American laborers on the railroad, and it's illustrated there in the Union Station, and so.
Well, we'll proudly host a lot of people really soon. So thanks, Betty. Okay, we do have some items for consideration this evening on their common consent. I'll entertain a motion to take action on those items.
Chair Nadolski, I'll make a motion then that we approve the common consent agenda, the three items that are there. Two of them setting public hearings for May 21st on A and B.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Heyer, second by Councilmember Lopez to adopt the items of common consent. Two are to set public hearings, one for the fiscal year 2019 budget amendments. The second is for a capital improvement plan amendments. And I believe your motion included the third two for consideration of appointment of Councilmember Blair to the Central Weber Sewer Board. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and thank you.
Any opposed? That passes. Thank you, Bart, for being our official sewer guy again.
That didn't come out right, did it?
One of, yeah. Every council needs one. We have two.
And the mayor.
And the mayor, you're right. Okay, moving into public hearings. Starting with our fiscal year 2020 annual action plan. I think we have Ward Ogden with us. Ward is going to present the FY 2020 annual action plan as well as the program guideline changes in items 1 and 2, micro enterprise loan program update and small business loan program update, and then we'll take action on all three individually after your presentation and questions.
Very good.
Thank you, Ward.
Mr. Chair, members of the council, pleased to be here. The item before you is the annual action plan for the fiscal year 2020, and this is the 5th year in our cycle of doing action plans for the use of the federal dollars which come to Ogden City. And so we've had goals and strategies put in place for a 5-year period. And then each year we do an annual action plan, which basically is an application to the federal government for the community development funds which come to the city. And if approved and submitted, then our funds are available to us beginning July 1. So it corresponds with our budget year. So we've had 4 years now of accomplishments using the community development funds and carrying forward those same goals and not really recommending any changes to that. Again, those federal funds are community development funds, and they're basically programmed towards physical development and revitalization of low and moderate income communities. That's really the purpose they're given to us. In 2015, we adopted a quality neighborhood strategy, which kind of was a bit of an umbrella over that, which included some other things. It was also adopted by the redevelopment agency. And so it had a little bit broader focus than just the federal funds. So these federal funds kind of come under that heading in terms of planning and focus. And the primary purpose of that quality neighborhood strategy was to elevate the health of the neighborhoods and to bring quality to the already affordable, but sometimes deteriorated conditions, and then to provide for healthy balance of housing options for all income classes. Just to really quickly wanted to highlight some of the benefits that have come through the use of these community development funds over the years. We've been able to assist over 1,800 low-income home buyers to purchase homes in our East Central area, primarily in the downtown area, Central Ogden. And then we've done a number of housing projects where we've built some new homes, done some revitalization by taking out some homes that were not salvageable and put in new homes. We've done 160 of those. And those were sold to owner-occupant home buyers. And those were affordable to households earning, on average, 60% of the area median income. So when you think about what does it mean to be low or moderate income, it's 80% of the area median income. That's kind of the range. And so these homes were quite affordable. They were based on their pricing and the sales price, they were affordable to households earning 60%. So that's kind of on the moderate income side. We did 200. Yes.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that last part about the moderate income and the percentages? Because I got a little lost there, please.
Sure. Yes. There's a rule. It's kind of a federal rule. It's a standard among all federal programs that moderate and low income households are determined to be moderate and low income if their incomes are 80% of the median income for the area. So median means that the middle.
Yeah.
If you stack all the incomes, that would be the middle income. And so 80% of that is lower, obviously 20% lower than the middle. And these homes are affordable to households at 60% of median. And then we've been able to do over 200 homes where we got some HUD homes or foreclosed homes or different homes that we've been able to purchase and then renovate them and sell them. Those homes on average have been available to households earning 50% of median, and that's determined to be low income.
Okay.
So low income is 50, moderate income is 50 to 80.
Okay.
And that kind of thing.
Do you have an actual figure, just an idea for a household of?
Yes, sure. I can tell you that the median income right now for a household of four is about $85,000. So 60% of that is 68,000. So
Okay.
68,000. No, that's the 80% number. That's 68,000. And so the
68,000
homes
is for 80%?
that's 80%. Yes.
Okay.
And then this is just information that helps you to understand kind of where the programs have been able to be a benefit to the community. But the homes available at 60% of median, that's about $53,000. So someone earning $53,000 could have bought a new home, and they did. That's who was buying these homes.
A family.
So that's
right?
That's
four.
pretty good.
Family of four.
Yeah. So that's about $25 an hour in terms of combined wages. And then on the rehab homes, that's 50% of median, so a household earning $42,000 would be able to afford these homes, and that's where they're being bought. And that's about a $20 an hour wage to be able to afford
family,
those homes.
right? That's not a single person.
Family.
Is that correct?
Family.
It could be a household.
Yeah, total
It's a household.
So it could be a two-income
Sure.
household. Okay.
And then, as you know, we've done some of the more notable ones because you can see a lot of homes all at once. Some of the infill homes that we've done in subdivisions, the Oakden bungalows and the Lincoln cottages, and the most recent one is the Stonehill homes on 22nd and Adams and Jefferson.
So,
And-
Ward, how many of the? I'm sorry. Excuse me, Chair Nadolski.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How many of of the total houses that were built were available to moderate and low income families versus a higher income?
Mm-hmm.
What percentage of the homes that were built were purchased by low and moderate?
75%.
75%?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. And then, of course, the homes that were affordable at a little higher rate, they're still affordable, but they're affordable to a household that earns a little bit more money. And those homes were, the Ogden bungalows, for instance, was available at 73% of median, which is still in the moderate income category. And right now we're finding that based on the pricing, and of course it's escalating because the market's going up, but the Stonehill homes are available around 80% of median. So these are moderate income, affordable homes, but they show nice, and they really give a shot in the arm to the neighborhood, and they give evidence that the neighborhood is improving and that its quality and character is improving, and people are coming and buying homes and staying and investing in their homes. So that's the effect that we're achieving, and that's the desired effect. So it's just kind of what's been happening over the past few years, and how great the effect is for having these federal dollars. It's very helpful. So just to get into our action plan a little bit and tell you, we've had a work session, and as part of the process for adopting the action plan, we go through a public process. We have our Citizen Advisory Committee meet and review the plan and make recommendation. And then we have a work session with the council, which was several weeks ago. And we have a public comment period, which has been published, and comment period has gone through 30 days. And then today's the hearing, and then we'll submit before May 15th. So there's a 45-day requirement that we submit. And then our funds will be awarded on July 1. So getting into to the budget for this year, we have the entitlement funds. We're entitled to the funds that come to us as long as we meet the requirements for this. And so we have an entitlement of community development block grant of $1,015,353. And there's a home entitlement grant, which is $416,038. These are small decreases over last year. So there was a small percentage decrease from what we had last year. But overall, our entitlement funds total $1.8 million when combined with some other city funds, non-federal, but we put them in the budget because they are in the program. And then we have $796,000 in program income, which comes back from the loan proceeds from money that's loaned. And then we have $3 million that's carried over from the prior year. That seems like a lot of money, and and it is. There's some of the some federal funds carried over, and again, when we buy and sell homes, we get money back, and so we got money back in the fiscal year, and we carry it over. So that's what a lot of that comes from. And so our total budget for the action plan is $5.7 million. And I'll just talk about where that's planned to go. There are a number of programs that are adopted, and the budget line items include the Quality Neighborhoods budget line item, which mainly is buying and renovating homes that are in deteriorated condition and then selling them to owner-occupants. There's $2.2 million in that budget. There's an emergency home repair program, which is available to very low-income households to take care of furnaces, water lines, sewer lines, and various things that have fallen into disrepair and pose an emergency to the household, and that's $40,000. Our down payment assistance program is $250,000, and with the new change to the guideline, which broadened that citywide, the number just went like that. So the participation just is off the charts now, and our assistant is staying late a couple days a week to try and stay up with it. So it's very successful and very helpful. We have our infill housing, which is primarily on the Stonehill Homes site right now. we have an organization. It's a nonprofit organization. Utah Nonprofit is our community development housing organization, and they do a project every year or two with. It's a set aside of the home fund, and there's $238,000 in that. And currently, they're building a house at 634 22nd Street. It's just down the street from the New Bridge School. We have target area public improvements, $250,000. We have our small business loan program, $240,000. Our special economic development program, another $250,000. Microenterprise loan program, $360,000. And then the operation of the BIC, which provides the service of counseling and referral and that kind of thing, and operating the Business Information Center at $55,000. And then we have our administrative set-asides. We have 20% of our block grant that can be used for administration and 10% of our home fund that can be used for administration. And the total administration budget is $366,000. And so we plan to carry out the goals we have a goal of 12 homes to be renovated and sold, 5 emergency home repair, 45 down payment assistance, 4 houses built and sold. And we know that we're going to exceed that. 8 small business loan jobs created, and 1 special economic development program loan. So that's the gist of the action plan and what is anticipated to be carried out. So open for any questions.
Any questions for Ward?
I have a quick question.
Yep.
Is there any data about for the BIC to know how much of the counseling is given to underserved groups?
I believe there is, and Sarah may be able to answer that.
So our mayor, when he presents the budget for next year, he has line item and he has a slide about all the projects we funded, but 77% have went to minority business enterprises. That means the owners are 51% or more minority. And so as far as underserved groups, and then as far as the loans to going to low income, I believe 11 out of our 13 projects, the loans went to low income owners. Okay. So that you can also clarify as an underserved group.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Those are good numbers.
We've heard about your good work. So
we
have one of these days we're going to have you back and get more detail because we've heard you've been doing a great job at that. Yeah. Thank you. Sorry, Ward.
No, that's fine. Any other questions on this?
Any more questions?
If not, we can move into the guideline.
No, I just real quick comment. I know that you presented some graphics and a presentation in our work session, and I'm just relaying that to maybe as we go into more of a public setting that you could do that again if you would.
For the public to see the graphics,
the next time.
That would be great.
I appreciate that. So thank you.
Yeah, we have the benefit of seeing it in the work session, but sometimes a lot of these folks haven't. So it's good to maybe review those things so that folks know what we've seen and considered at the same time. I have one quick question on the minor budget reductions. Mm-hmm. Is that due to a federal budget?
Yes, it's a federal budget.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So
and we're lucky to have this money.
You're doing great work with it.
Sure. There have been times where we were worried we wouldn't get it. So. Okay, I think any more questions before he moves to the program guideline changes? Okay, thanks, Ward.
Okay. The business loan guidelines, there's a proposal to do some changes to the business loans operated from the BIC. I'll just give you sort of an overview of how the federal government looks at the way that we loan the money. There are 2 national objectives that can be met. You have to meet an objective, obviously, for the use of the funds. And those 2 national objectives are creation of jobs for low and moderate income employees. And then there's another national objective called limited clientele. It basically means that you're loaning money to a low or moderate income business owner. So you can meet one of 2 objectives. What the federal government has told us is that they don't want us to have a program that combines those two objectives in one program. They'd prefer us to have separate programs, one for each objective. So that's really the gist of what we're talking about tonight. It's an advantage to us to keep both of those national objectives. So we really do want to have the option of having a benefit creating jobs or a benefit creating an option for benefiting a low and moderate income business owner. There's different types of loans that can be, or different types of borrowers and different types of situations, so the flexibility is very helpful to have. And so that's what we're trying to do. Under the small business loan program, the changes really would be to remove the limited clientele criteria as one of the objectives that it could meet, and to keep the job creation one. So the small business loan keeps the job creation national objective, and then just a small change is to remove a 1% loan origination fee, which has been difficult to collect, and it's more troublesome than it's worth to try and to deal with that. So it's just something they decided to request to be removed. And then keeping, of course, the national objective of job creation. And then with the microenterprise loan program, as you recall, there was a microenterprise guideline that was specifically aimed at a training program. So it was a limited amount of funds, and it was aimed at a training program that they ran the course of the training program, and that program is now expired and really doesn't apply anymore. The current guideline doesn't apply. So the recommendation for that program is to sunset that guideline, cancel it, and then adopt a new guideline, which is no different than the small business loan, except that it has its national objective of meeting a limited clientele, which is a lower moderate income business owner. And it meets the definition of what they call a microenterprise. And a microenterprise is a business that has 5 or fewer employees, where one or more of those employees is the business owner. So that's literally the only change. So we'll have 2 programs with the same loan guidelines. They just meet different national objectives. So that's the recommendation, adopt those resolutions. And
it's as though you've done this before, Ward.
been here before.
Any questions for Ward on the program guideline changes?
I have one. On these small loans that you go through and process, what's the interest rate on that? Have you
The interest
mentioned
rate
that?
is in the guideline. And if Sarah were here, she'd just tell me off the top of her head.
Well, actually, the interest rate is up to 12% in both program guidelines. However, I know in the work session there was some discussion about the 5% rate. And when we expired the training program of the microenterprise program that we did as a pilot, what we found is how we motivate people to go to training. We offer a reduced rate if they go to the training program. So you've heard about the Utah Hispanic Chambers Business Academy. That's yielded over 120 Ogden small businesses graduating. K-Bent is producing small business owners. And so if you complete a training, we're offering businesses that aren't bankable a 5% rate. Otherwise, we structure our rates based on the collateral the same way a bank would, but we go 1 to 3% higher based on the collateral they're offering. Our loan programs require 100% loan to value, and so we look at the collateral and if based on the credit worthiness, with the cap being 12%.
Sarah, while you're here, I think I heard in a work session that there was another group, from Weber State, where people could also be certified for this training, like they do in the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce type of class. Is that true? Is that accurate as far as you know?
We're willing to look at different training programs through the Weber State Small Business Development Center and the SBA, their funding source, one of them. They had the Emerging Leaders Program. And so Alex Guzman, who's actually the executive director of the Hispanic Chamber, he was one of the graduates.
Okay.
And the 10,000 Small Business Initiative, that's another program that we're happy to accept. And so if there's new programs we're unaware of, we'll look at those programs. And as long as they meet the objectives of reducing the risk to the city, which is preparing a business owner to run their business, and facilitating the relationships in their local community. We're able to, we're very flexible. That's
Perfect.
the point, is we want the business to grow and we want them to pay back the loan so we can help more people.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
So how many loans is there a cap of how many loans you issue each year?
It's capped by the budget, and what we've experienced since I've came on board, and Ward's great to work with, is when I hit the cap, if Ward has leftover money, he finds more money so I can go help more business owners. And so this year we funded 13 businesses. We approved 13 businesses, and we've allocated $800,000 as a sum total available for our small business loans. And so we didn't fully expend the full $800,000, but we're really close. So
Okay. How many jobs were created with that?
it depends on what you want to look at. So with the program guideline changes, when they're low, moderate clientele, technically the job to the business owner is what HUD looks at as the job created, because we're providing a job to the business owner. And so fully you can say 13, but when we aren't providing the loans to the low, moderate income clientele, we're giving them for jobs. And then I'm not certain what the exact figure it is, but it's one job is required for every $35,000 borrowed. So we'll judge those over the next few years because they have 2 years to create the jobs. So for those, you're looking at roughly an obligation of creating 6 jobs, but I'm not sure historically. That's in your report, what we've produced for the past loans. But this year they've yet to create them because they're new loans.
You might add the track line project is generating.
Oh yeah, the Trackline project, and that was funded through the HUD 108 program. It's not actually one of our small business loan programs, but that's also HUD funding that's creating jobs as well.
Sarah, we appreciate your report, your contribution.
Thank you.
For real though, I do hope we get to hear from you in the budget process. Not to get too far ahead of myself in the agenda, but the council is interested in how we're helping minority business owners and how we're investing in those kind of opportunities in our community. So we've been hearing a lot of good things, like I said earlier.
Oh, thank you.
we'd
I
love-
know there's a slide dedicated to it. So, so all the statistics are there. So,
Okay. Thank you so
so
much.
there's information. Thank you.
Excellent. Further
Okay.
questions?
Anything else for Ward or Sarah? Okay, this is a public hearing, so we'll entertain public comment. If you wish to provide comment to the council on any of these 3 items, please say your name and limit your comment to 3 minutes.
Angel Castillo, thank you for being here and doing what you do. And you are absolutely right. If you haven't had a chance to interact with Sarah Stauffer, she's magic. One of the things that I think is a shining example of what Ogden City does right is the Own in Ogden program, allowing people to have access to purchase homes that they normally wouldn't. But I do have one problem when listening to that budget. I didn't hear a single line item for marketing. I'm a Facebook administrator for a group of women, over 2,000 in Ogden, called the Ogden Rad Ladies, and I've lost track of how many times I've tried to refer those women to let them know that you can get a microloan. You can go to Sarah. Sarah will hold your hand and walk you through the process, and the city has funds dedicated to help get you into a home. And I run into this every couple of weeks. Someone will post about renting, and then I'll ask, why aren't they buying? And then they'll go, well, I can't afford. Well, how do you know that Ogden has a program to help you with down payment assistance? Do you know that we renovate homes for you to be able to get into, to be invested in our community? And I have yet to meet one person that I've interacted on that page that knows about it. And it's a fantastic program. And it seems to be a disconnect with getting the message out to the actual people who need it. And although I am a marketing consultant, so everything does come back to marketing for me, this just seems a really simple thing that if you want more people to participate, if you want more people to own in Ogden and take advantage of all of the business programs that we're offering and the magic that is Sarah Stauffer's, you have to invest some money into reaching out to people, hire a PR agency, hire a temporary person, and have someone be able to carry that message that we are here to support our citizens and support our local businesses with a program. Thank you.
Thank you, Angel. Anyone else wish to speak to this item? Travis, good to see you tonight.
Travis Pate. I live in adjacent to the Adams Avenue CRA, and I think that's one of the interesting things is because I wrote a letter and it says one comment received requesting Adams Avenue bench master plan. Request was forwarded to Planning Commission. So the very next column on the tail end says that summary of comments not accepted and reasons. And so there's no reasons as to why my comments weren't accepted as directed towards the Adams Avenue. So I'd like to address that and then possibly come back to my public comment and then just answer questions that way, because I worked pretty hard on the development of that and putting in a public comment. And also it says how it was submitted. It says the internet outreach. Hey, it wasn't internet outreach. It was a hand-delivered letter. And so I think just misrepresentation and miscategorization of that. If I go onto the council's website and it says request to be on the agenda, there's a drop-down menu. I just type in a box. If I go to the ogdencity.com website, then go to the con plan website, then I have to look in the upper lower left-hand corner and go, oh, there's annual action plans. I click on annual action plans, then it has the PDF of the annual action plan. And then it says, put a public comment. Public comment screen pops up, says enter your email. I enter my email, and then it says you hereby authorize Microsoft to have your Google account, and you agree to terms and privacy and usage statements, which is 112 pages of information that I have to go through just to submit a comment online instead of a simple drop-down menu. So there's some misrepresentation where it says one click and you're in. If it was simple like the council's agenda item, it would be one click and I could enter the comments. But this, like I said, 112 pages of privacy in terms of use simply to enter a comment on the annual action plan. So I don't care to have mine associated to say, hey, we did internet outreach and have my name associated with that. And then also the dynamic of it says if they weren't not accepted, the reason why. So I really want to know why, and then I would like to come back to be able to address that. I brought some images and portraits for you, some pictures of the Adams Avenue and Porter Avenue Historic District, because I think the Jefferson Avenue Historic District, my understanding and promise to all the neighbors that came in and invested, where my parents have been there since my childhood. My birth certificate and driver's license have the same address. It's a rare thing, but there's millions of dollars and millions of hours, hundreds of thousands of hours that people would dedicate their lives, and they're not expanding the Jefferson Avenue Historic District, they're encroaching. And so I have some images that show you that. And so, like I said, part of my dialogue in time was addressing concerns that were not addressed here. So I'm not trying to go past the time, but
Travis, if you could get those images to Brandon, he'll pass them out on your comment.
It's not collated, so.
We don't have an ability, as per rules that we have to maintain, to bring you back for a second comment. I will, if it's okay.
But if I have questions as they do address it, then I'm happy to answer those. So not so much a second comment, but just questions.
We'll make sure
regarding that.
We'll get your comment.
And then just to let you know, like Porter Avenue in 1924, they had a shortwave radio operator that received a broadcast from the air over the air. It was the airship Shenandoah, 200 miles off the coast of San Francisco. So Porter Avenue has a significant history. Okay. Weber State vacant land they got buildings from the Ogden Arsenal, and they were the original POW buildings for the German and Italian war prisoners right there on that property. So there needs to be historic preservation. It's not just a master plan, it's historic preservation.
Okay. Thanks, Travis.
Thanks.
What about his comment during public comment?
Yeah, Travis, you can follow up in the public comment at the end of the agenda if you have some extra comments we'd like to hear. Okay. Okay. Before we get to answers to the questions that have been posed, any other public wish to comment on this item?
I am sure. Sebastian Benitez, 3310 Taylor Avenue. I agree with these guys, especially with Angel and Travis. Communication between the city and the resident is the issue to the people know what is the plan, what is the idea, what we have in the city government programs. And I said that is the issue because the residents usually don't know what's going on. And when we come here and we complain for something or we request something, we don't receive really good answers, or action about whatever we are coming to say here. I feel really accurate to show this sign and to show what's going on,
Hey, Sebastian, is your comment related to this specific item?
It's in some way, yeah.
Okay.
And some of you recognize this sign when you are driving around Ogden, about East Bench. Sorry, but the comment is, yes, about the plan, how we can reach, like Angel mentioned, the women with low income, or this is a great plan. I am so happy to see Mr. Ogden here because I know him for a long time. We are no friends, but I know what he's doing. My point is communication between the plan, the government, with the resident. That is a really little issue we have in Ogden. That is my only comment. This one is because 2 years ago I came here and offered something to fix some problem, about the speeding and something like that. And the mayor said, Mr. Benitez, we are working on that. 2 years ago, I made that one in the beginning of this year, and it made a really good result. Communication between government and resident, that is the problem in Ogden City in one way. Can we fix that one? I don't know how. You are the government. Thank you.
Thank you, Sebastian.
Oh.
Anybody else care to comment on this item? Okay, seeing no more movement. Ward, would you mind coming up and addressing the two questions that came up? I think we got the gist on the challenges of providing public feedback on this particular item. If you could comment on that, and then the marketing question.
Public feedback.
And then
we can. I think there's always more you can do to get better at shortening that link. So we'll have to look at that
how
on the
about,
website and see how easy that is. I wasn't aware it was as difficult as he made it out to be.
Okay. There was also an underlying issue that he mentioned on the comment that he did make.
Mm-hmm. So the requirement, and it's really a substantive issue, and that is you need to look at the comments and take them into account. So it's not like you have to adopt everything that's given to you as a request, but you have to consider it. And so the request to consider a master plan for the Adams Avenue sort of corridor area, it's an important thing. It's an important concept, and there's obviously concern about that. And so the decision was that we took it into account. It's not like we didn't address it. We addressed it from the standpoint of this is an important thing, but it's a planning issue, and it comes down to understanding what the nature of that dynamic is of that hillside area and how that transitions from the downtown to the neighborhood. And so it's not an action plan issue. It's a zoning, planning, land use issue. And so that's why we indicated that we referred it to planning.
Okay. Was the commenter notified of the next step? The
I'm
referral?
not sure.
Okay.
So anyway, and then
Okay.
yeah. So
Okay, I think
I mean, our recommendation was let planning look at this. It's a much bigger issue than we could handle within a few weeks, and it's not something that the action plan has. There's not a line item to put that in. That should be on another track.
Okay.
Relative to marketing, there's always more that we can do for marketing. There's obviously people that don't know about things, but you do what you can do, and then you get the word out to who you get. So if someone hasn't heard, that means they haven't interfaced with what we've done. So is there more we can do? There's always more, but there's plenty that we do. We have a lot of connections with those in the industry, the real estate industry, and those in the lending industry, and title, and all that. So there's a large word of mouth network. There's the utility newsletter, which generates a huge amount of response, both for Own in Ogden, the houses that we do, and the HELP program. So that's really a good marketing tool, the utility newsletter. That gets the word out in a big way. We have a website, and we have signs in the neighborhoods that refer to the website. It's very easy to see the homes and the programs on the website. They're listed. There's program guidelines there. You can even download them and submit them right from the website. So I guess the only thing I could say is there's obviously more that you can do, and if someone hasn't heard, then they simply haven't found those things that are out there that we've done. So,
Can I do a follow-up question?
Yeah, please.
I was just wondering, is that something that would normally fall into this budget, or would that fall into a different area in the city's budget, or would it be something that would be a part of this?
Are you talking about the
marketing issue?
Marketing?
Like, do you have
no, we actually have money in marketing. We can do that.
What are we using it for? If not for this, what is it used for?
Well, we have, anytime we do a development project, obviously we do marketing for that, and marketing for the sale of homes and signs and various things like that. Utility newsletter doesn't cost us anything, so we don't have to do that.
Yeah, I mean,
It's a little bit of
think you're
money
right
for the
that
website.
That can be a really good tool, but if you're not paying those utilities, then you may not get access to that.
Sure.
Certain populations
Yeah.
wouldn't get that utility bill, maybe.
It's true. There's other things we can look at, obviously.
And I can't speak to the Ogden Rad Ladies group because I'm not allowed to be a member as per administrator rules. I am a member of Ogden Rad Men, but actually the comment that Ms. Castillo made was salient to me because I've actually heard that quite a bit. There's, I think that from what I hear from real estate agents, they are not broadly aware of it. The community certainly isn't. And I don't know if that means that we're not serving the people that are needing the service, or if we're taking what we get, but maybe we can. I don't know. I don't know if we're getting folks from outside the community, but there are people inside the community that need access. I don't know
and it may not be like a broad brush, but there's plenty of tracks that people do know.
Okay.
And we've done workshops with brokers, gone to their offices and had meetings with the brokers and their agents and that kind of thing. And so again, there's a lot of brokerages, a lot of agents, a lot of new agents. So I mean, there's always more we can do. So, but we get a very good response, and so people do know about it. You can always find people that don't. So
okay.
So we'll take it into account and see if there's other things we can do.
Chair, I think maybe we're asking him to solve problems, and I think we're bringing up a problem without bringing any solutions. And I think that's probably, if we've got some ideas, probably ought to.
No, it's
you
just
know, shoot
it's
them
just
his
something
way.
it's something that's come up. I mean, it came up public comment. It's,
I have experienced it myself. I mean,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
there are city amenities, things that can be citizens can take advantage of that all the citizens don't know about, and they don't know that they don't know, and so I don't know how you do that. You know, it's one of those deals. You know, so
yeah. Well, we're definitely not going to crack that nut here.
yeah,
tonight,
I think
but
we just keep working on it, and I
Thanks for
appreciate
the-
your efforts. And
Yeah,
Thanks for the
and we'll take
conversation.
it into account. I mean, it's obviously a concern for some that haven't found it. So maybe there's a track that we can go to get the people that don't interface with the resources that we made available so far.
Thank you, Ward.
So
Appreciate
that.
Appreciate your help with that. Any other questions from the council before we entertain action on these items? Seeing none, actually, we need to entertain a motion to close the public hearing first.
I'll make a motion. We close the public hearing, Chair.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Heyer, second by Councilmember Blair to close the public hearing. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Public hearing is closed. Now I'll entertain action on the items. My apologies.
To do them all separately, right?
Yeah, we'll take them one at a time.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we adopt Resolution 2019-8.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Heyer, second by Councilmember White to adopt proposed resolution 2019-8. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Blair.
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens.
Aye.
Councilmember White.
Aye.
Vice Chair Chaburka.
Aye.
Chair Nadolski.
Aye, that passes. Item 2 sub I number 1, Micro Enterprise Loan Program update.
Chair, I'll make a motion to adopt the proposed resolution 2019-10 for the Micro Enterprise Loan Program.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Vice Chair Chaburka, second by Councilmember Heyer to adopt proposed resolution 2019-10. This also is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Heyer.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens.
Aye.
Councilmember White.
Aye.
Councilmember Blair.
Aye.
Vice Chair Chaburka.
Aye.
Chair Nadolski.
Aye, that also passes.
Chair Nadolski, I would like to make a motion to adopt proposed resolution 2019-11.
I second it.
We have a motion by Councilmember Lopez, second by Councilmember Stevens to adopt proposed resolution 2019-11. This too is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens.
Aye.
Councilmember White.
Aye.
Councilmember Blair.
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer.
Aye.
Vice Chair Chaburka.
Aye.
Chair Nadolski.
Aye, that also passes. Thank you, Ward and team, for your work on this. I think overall, I do think the community's clearly benefiting from the work you're doing. The program is serving a lot of folks. I think, I think we can do some things with word of mouth. Obviously, I hope we can have more conversations about that when we come back again. But appreciate your help, and as it relates to community feedback on those items, I hope we'll take a look at that mechanism that's so cumbersome, but also if there's a way in that mechanism to reach back and notify if it's not going to be considered in this, just to, no sense in having it here if we, Okay. Thank you. Reports from administration. I think we have Tracy Hansen here waiting patiently in the back. Tracy? To present to us on government records and access management.
Good evening. Before you tonight is a proposal to update the city's municipal code with regards to the Government Records Access Management Act, or GRAMA. The state code allows a city to adopt an ordinance governing the access to public records and to establish an appeal process for any who are dissatisfied with classification or an access decision. Ogden City did adopt an ordinance in 1992, and it's been updated several times since. When looking at the code compared to state code this time, we found that the state code meets the city's needs without having a separate ordinance. Since having a separate ordinance requires updates every time the legislature makes updates to the code to keep us in compliance, our recommendation would be to repeal all the sections of Ogden City's code which are specifically addressed in grandma law and the state code. The remaining 5 sections would eliminate redundant statements and clarify language. They would outline appeals and fees. So it's our recommendation that that you would adopt this ordinance. Any questions?
Any questions for Tracy?
Okay.
Nope. Pretty straightforward and simple. Thanks, Tracy.
Chair Nadolski, I'd like to make a motion to adopt proposed ordinance 2019-16.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Lopez, second by Vice Chair Chaburka to adopt proposed ordinance 2019-16. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Stevens.
Aye.
Councilmember White.
Aye.
Councilmember Blair.
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Vice Chair Chaburka.
Aye.
Chair Nadolski.
Aye, that passes. Thank you, Tracy, for your diligence on that. We'll have you back again on item B, retiring committees.
From time to time, it becomes necessary to evaluate the purposes of city committees and boards. A review took place and several committees were found to be inactive. There are 8, which are on your screen now. They've either met their purpose or have been restructured to better meet the needs of the city. Advisory committee records have a permanent retention. So even if these committees are no longer active, their records are maintained in the city archives permanently. As with the Sustainability Committee that was recently adopted, there's opportunity to amend committee memberships to include youth on boards to allow participation from youth if that's desired from administration or council. So the recommendation before you would be to adopt the proposed ordinance, which would repeal the inactive committees. This is purely a matter of housekeeping so that the city code reflects what's currently active with the committees. Any questions?
Any questions for Tracy? I think maybe we'll repeat a little bit the conversation we had in work session, since a lot of the folks that are here or the handful that might be watching online didn't hear it, but you want to leave those comments?
Yeah, I'm happy to. I just had some concerns over removing the Marshall White Center Advisory Committee at this time. I know it hasn't been active, but to me, based on kind of the conversation that we had in the work session, it's more about how the city did not have management up until about 2 years ago, and that we are having a lot of discussions and talk around what's happening at the Marshall White Center at this time. So I'm not saying that we would keep this exact structure, but I was reluctant to maybe remove it and then have to reinstate it again later. If we could possibly remove it tonight so we could have further discussion about that with the staff and administration about how it might look, because we do have the Golden Hours advisory group too. So it was a good productive conversation, I think, about that.
Yeah. Any other comments on that item?
I just have a comment, not related to that item, but related to the Youth Council. And, I had some heartache getting rid of that, but I think the model that was set through that Sustainability Committee by adding youth onto those committees might be a good model or a template for other committees that we already have. So I really appreciated you pointing that out, Tracy. Yeah. So thank you.
To add to Vice Chair Chaburka's comments on the Marshall White Committee, we just recognize there's a need for engagement there. There's lots of questions regarding the future and the condition and how we're going to address the pool, et cetera. I think if this committee had been functional, those conversations would have been working, but there has been a lapse, especially in the changeover in ownership. But I think we, in the conversation we had in the work session, we just kind of agreed that now wouldn't be the time to pull back on having an advisory committee in case there is a need, given the future discussions that we think are underway, and it seemed the administration agreed with that approach as well. Anybody? So if we can, entertain action to remove that committee from consideration of removal tonight. If
Chair, then I will make that motion. I will move to amend the proposed ordinance 2019-17 to remove Chapter 14 from the repeal to allow the Marshall and White Center Advisory Committee regulations to remain in place until such time as they are needed.
I'll second that. Oh.
Thank you, Council. We have a motion by Councilmember Heyer to amend proposed ordinance 2019-17, which would remove Chapter 14 from the repeal to allow Marshall White Advisory Committee to remain in place until such time as it may be needed. And we have a second by Vice Chair Chaburka. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember White?
Aye.
Councilmember Blair?
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer?
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez?
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens?
Aye.
Vice Chair Chaburka?
Aye.
Chair Nadolski?
Aye, that passes. Appreciate the conversation on the item. It's not intended to be a slight on anybody's efforts, just the identification of a need for some community outreach to get to talk to some folks that are really wondering what we're going to do. And so I don't know if this committee will be the mechanism for that, but maybe it would be nice if hopefully one day it is. So.
Mr. Chair, if I can continue with that thought, I would make a motion then that we adopt the amended proposed ordinance 2019-17.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Heyer, second by Councilmember Lopez to adopt the amended proposed ordinance 2019-17. This also is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Blair?
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer?
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez?
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens?
Aye.
Councilmember White?
Aye.
Vice Chair Chaburka?
Aye.
Chair Nadolski?
Aye, that passes. Thank you, Tracy. Appreciate you sticking around. Thank you to Mark and the mayor for your willingness to engage in that way. I think it'll be really meaningful. Let us know if there's anything we do to help. Appreciate it. Okay, and now for the main event. Item C, Mayor's proposed fiscal year 2019-2020 budget presentation.
Chair Nadolski, these scouts have picked a good day to be here.
Boy, have you.
You are getting some good exposure.
If you get merit badges by the hour, you're getting badges tonight.
If you do need to go, I want you to celebrate another 100 years. That's an awesome accomplishment. So thank you for being here, and we hope you have another 100 more. So thank you. And you can tell the relief in the back of the room. Lisa Stout is breathing a lot easier these days. But this is always a big accomplishment to get to this point. We appreciate being able to be in front of you and the work that's gone into this. As you know, this is something we take very seriously, and we had 5 full days of budget retreats and invited all kinds of different people and staffers in to get as much information as we could as we went through this. I think we collectively, for those of you that have been here and have been through this before, we have, I think, a really good track record of being able to work together. The public transparency and the public trust comes from transparency and the work and effort that we put into this and to communicate back. And so I am always happy to come and bring this to you than to answer any needs that or questions that come up over the course of the next number of weeks. I salute you for the work that you're going to put into looking at this and doing the deep dive with all of our department directors and working on this. I know that sometimes we all feel that government works frustratingly slow, and it's because we put guardrails into how we utilize public monies and prioritize that. And sometimes it just takes a while to make sure we get everything done and we have all our I's dotted and T's crossed. And so a lot of work's gone into this, and it's a pleasure to be here. I've talked about the process before. When I was elected, I realized pretty quickly that I'm not an expert in almost any of these areas. And I did the math with our department directors that participated in all of these meetings. We have over 150 years of collective experience just from the department directors in managing budgets and issues and things like water, sewer, public safety, police work, engineering. I mean, there's so much that goes into that we wanted to bring everybody together and make sure that when we came to you all, we were on the same page. We had a unanimous recommendation from everybody that was a department director, from all of the staffers that participated in that. As you know, every year we go through some of our priorities and what we have available, and at the end of the day, nobody gets everything. And our job is to see what we have available, make priorities, listen to you all, listen to the community, and then make decisions on where we think we'll get the best return on investment for the taxpayer's dollar. And so this is a representative of that as we move forward. Go through a couple of important slides. Budget comparison to last year. You adopted the one on the left lane, fiscal year 2019. You can see where the different priorities came in. I don't need to read those all out loud. At the end, the total municipal budget for last year was $202,986,025. We have a 1.26% increase in what we're recommending to you all for consideration of $205,543,100 for an increase, as mentioned, as 1.26%. It's always kind of fun to talk about things that are happening in our community. This weekend will be no less eventful and exciting. A couple of fun things we were able to pull over the last year in terms of recognitions we've received. Top 100 places to live from livability.com. Top 15 cities where jobs were plentiful and business is booming. CNBC. The best girlfriend getaway on a skinny budget. The rad ladies need to know about that on your Facebook account. That came from Forbes, which was a fun one to read through. One of my personal favorites, obviously, 10 best U.S. mountain bike towns with the lowest cost of living. One of the best cities for starting a small business from Businesswomen. 30th best city in the United States for starting a business from Wallet Hub. And one I really was kind of surprised by, but I'm not overly surprised when you reflect on it. Highest rate of millennial home ownership. When they talk about your ability to build wealth and get yourself stable in any kind of a market, home ownership is one of the keys of that. And so having one of the highest rates of young people buying homes, getting established, starting families, that really is a litmus test for stability in the community and in those neighborhoods. And that's something we've talked a lot about. So I was really excited to see that one. As I mentioned, I think we've worked really well collaborating with each other. And everybody, one of the unique things about the council is you have different areas that you spend a lot of time in, different groups you spend a lot of time with. And our ability to work together and to share those ideas is really important as we address these kinds of issues in our community. I've had numerous text messages, phone calls, your staff has been in contact as these things come up, and that really helps us make priorities as we move into a budget year. So I hope we're able to continue that, and that partnership that we have with your staff and the administration and you all is critically important to this. I'll go into some of the other partnerships, but I particularly like the Weber State picture right there. I've told this story a lot, but when I was first elected, I went to Weber State and said, hey, to then President Ann Miller, what can we do to work together? What's been working and what hasn't? And how can you guys are an extremely important part of our community. How can we work better together? And she said, Mike, I haven't had a single conversation with somebody from Ogden City on any level in over 7 years. We have no idea what you're doing. You have no idea what we're doing. And you're right. We could get a lot more out of these relationships if we were able to work together. And so we recognized pretty early that we had to work on partnerships. We're not able to get anything done, and we're not able to get anything done effectively if we don't have partnerships. And so we listed in this list a number of the different partnerships we've worked really hard on over the years. Obviously, with RDAs and everything else, we don't do anything without the county and the school district. Weber State's critical. You can read through that list. Will admit this has me in way more meetings and driving to Salt Lake, way more than I had ever imagined or wanted to. There's a reason I live in Ogden and not make that commute to Salt Lake. But it's really important that we have these partnerships and so that Ogden gets recognized and we have a seat at the table. As has been said a lot, you either have a seat at the table or you're on the menu. You can kind of pick. We chose to have a seat at the table, and I know a lot of you have been involved in some of these other groups as well, and that's been really important. We'll continue to work with those partners that we have that do so much in our community. Collectively, we do way more together than any of us individually do on our own, and so we'll continue to encourage everybody to stay very involved in those community partners that do so much for our community. One of the things we've heard a lot and that we have even heard tonight is how do we improve and increase our community engagement. That's in tune with the partnership slides that we just saw. A couple of things we have coming up that we want to talk a little bit about are the redevelopment project area plans and community plans. have the Southeast Ogden Community Plan, the Gibson Community Plan, and the West Ogden Community Plan. There are other community plans that we've heard about that we're looking at as well. Part of that can come down to bandwidth. We have a pretty small department, and with everything going on in the city right now, it's difficult to pull back from that and do some of that planning. So we prioritize where we're at in the cycle and how close a project is or an area is to needing some action. So it's always a delicate balance on what areas do we put a lot of planning resources to and what areas do we need to program a little bit later in the cycle. That is critically important to us, though. And in comments to that, we've had dozens of open houses and community meetings. I'm looking at the Bus Rapid Transit project as a planning. I know UTA's done almost a dozen meetings in the last couple of years, inviting the community in and getting them involved. And that is a challenge. There are people that won't know that the Golden Spike 150 is going on this weekend, even though it's been all over my social media, all over the news. I see some people just aren't on social media. They are not involved in the news. They don't read the paper. And how do we find a way to connect with them is a challenge that I think we're all going to have to address as we move forward. And as different technologies come available, I think we'll be able to do that. But we're committed to improving that community engagement as we move forward. That's critical to what we're doing and important. And I know that's very important to you, and we've made that a priority for us. Those other planning efforts, that Bus Rapid Transit project, we're really excited about. That's going to make a sweeping change to what happens at Weber State and people's ability to access higher education and to get along the primary corridors, to go from the downtown central business district up into the university and the hospital. Interestingly, we had a ride on the Orem Provo Bus Rapid Transit system. It was a 5-hour turnaround. We left Ogden and got back about 5 hours later as we rode Front Runner all the way down and did that BRT in the Provo Orem area. They thought the best estimate for the Provo BRT was going to be about 3,000 riders per day. They're over 9,000 riders per day. So that's been wildly embraced down there and successful. And UTA has, we don't know if it would be triple what their best estimates are, but they have great expectations for this project moving forward. So we're really excited about that, and that's taken a lot of community engagement. A couple of the other important ones that we've really enjoyed participating in, the Transportation Master Plan. We split that up a little bit. A lot of you have seen the wayfinding signs we have around the downtown central business district now. We thought as we have this big volume of people that come in over the sesquicentennial celebration, it would be nice to pull that out, prioritize that, and make sure people are able to get around in our community. That Sarah Tolliver was on that committee for a number of years, and she pulled over when those wayfinding signs started to come up, took a picture, and basically said, tears in my eyes because this was a 9-year project, and I'm finally seeing that come to fruition, and I love it. I'm really excited about that. But that was part of that transportation master plan that we carved up a little bit and found things we could do now and implement now, and then we'll layer some of those other things in some phases. So we were really excited to see that finally come together. Nine Rails Creative District Master Plan has been very important. I think everybody has seen what has happened up there with the Monarch and a number of other things. There's a lot of energy with that right now. I'll tell you, I had 3 council people from Park City when we were at the Utah League of Cities and Towns pull me aside and say, what are you guys doing for arts and culture in Ogden? We're hearing all this great stuff about it in Park City, and how did you guys get that kick-started and get some momentum behind that? And I thought, Park City, you can't walk down the street without passing 5 galleries a block up there. And so for them to be hearing about that organically in Park City, I thought was pretty cool. And we said we've got a group of really passionate people that have been very involved in that, and that's what we try to do is stand up our community members and empower them to get things done there. Bicycle Master Plan has been in for a little bit. We're excited about that. I'll talk a little bit about Green Bike and what's happening there and a slide down the line. 2050 plan for Union Station in downtown. Recreation Master Plan has been very important, and the Airport Master Plan has been very important, and I know a lot of you have participated in both of those as well. One of the things that gets, I think, a lot of the most attention as we talk about what's happening in Ogden, and I had a chance to be interviewed on Channel 4. They're doing small studio stand-ups, and Randy and I actually, the chief and I participated in that yesterday for a little bit. And one of the comments that the lead anchor kept saying is, this is just the comeback city. You guys are just the comeback cities. They looked into the history and what's happening and the things that are popping up and the excitement and energy that's here. Said, that is just amazing. I can't believe what you guys have been able to do and accomplish in a relatively short period of time. So it was kind of fun to be in that conversation. But it's important as we look at redevelopment and what's happening to look at the past projects that were foundational to the growth that we're seeing now. And I want to give you a quick stat. Well, obviously, BDO is the biggest one everybody knows about. The Junction, we've invested in that for a long time. Startup Ogden and Weber State downtown. Historic 25th and Washington Boulevard. Ogden River Restoration, Riverbend. And you can see the number of housing units that have gone on in the Riverbend. One of the stories we told them was that historic 25th Street was in that RDA 30 years ago, and in 30 years ago, 35 of the 43 buildings were vacant and boarded. That's when I was going to Weber State in 91 and 92, and you'd drive down 25th Street and you'd roll up the window, unlock the door, and kind of peek over the door jamb. 3 or 4 years ago, I can't remember exactly when, the American Planning Association came and rated that as one of the top 10 streets in the United States of America. We told that story on that pop-up studio interview, and they kind of couldn't believe it. But that was because 30 years ago, we made those investments, and it's one of those past projects we're really seeing come to fruition now. In 2007, we had roughly $1.2 million in BDO lease revenue. Today, BDO lease revenue is over $8 million. Over the past 12 years, that comes to total $48 million in lease revenue that the city has been able to invest in city improvements and RDA projects. BDO, as you know, is also an engine for business attraction and a primary employment center. We really appreciate the vision that people had to bring BDO online and to create that partnership all of those years ago. We would not be doing what we're doing today in terms of capital improvements or any other significant investments in the community without the vision they had to create that those 20 years ago. Those were the past projects. These are the things we're working on presently. A lot of you are very aware of these. The Ogden Business Exchange and Track Line, the Keystone and Lotus Building, which is, I believe, over 90% full now. If you haven't been through there, they've done a great job reclaiming that historic building and bringing in a lot of high-tech and advertising and marketing creative type companies. Thorstenson Building, the Utah Brewery, just opened in the basement of that. They've got great plans for the upper levels. I know a few of you have talked about that. Nine Rails Creative District, the Monarch, which has had international attention. It's been amazing to see what they've done there and what that arts kind of incubator has done. We have great expectations for that when it's fully functional. Fred Meyer site we're still working on. Airport and BDO will continue to be a present project well into the future because there's just so much going on there. Future projects, obviously these will at some point become coming to you all for consideration. A lot of these haven't been completely outlined yet, and we're always working with different developers and through planning and everything else to put presentations in front of you. Some of the ones we're excited about, though, the Continental CRA and redevelopment, which is the Hostess site, Gramercy CRA and redevelopment, the Rite Aid site, Ogden Airport CRA and redevelopment, the First Security Bank renovation, East Temple redevelopment, North Temple redevelopment, Union Station redevelopment, and support downtown office space that really continues to grow our target industries. I will say I had the opportunity to go tour 3 buildings that were being renovated in Cache Valley by the new owner of the First Security Bank, and they have done a phenomenal job with that and have a great touch for restoring very historic properties, and I was very optimistic that they're a really good owner for that project, and I think we'll do amazing things. So we look forward to talking with you all about those as some of those things come online, but those are the things you'll see and hear about over the next number of years. One of the things we talk about all the time are business attraction, expansion, and gardening. I think it's really interesting that since 2011, the attraction and expansion efforts have led to 8,324 new jobs. We've been continually recognized as one of the fastest growing economies because of that job creation and what's happened there. Present focus, we've talked a lot about our target industries. We do amazing things in northern Utah with advanced materials, aerospace, and defense. We're very lucky to have a partner Like Hill Air Force Base, that employs over 22,000 people. The last estimate I read with what Hill Air Force Base contributes to the northern Utah economy is over $8 billion. They have over 6,000 independent people, whether it's boots to brass to bolts or anything else, that supply materials into Hill Air Force Base. So we have been able to grow a very robust ecosystem around supporting aerospace and defense. We also have a lot of IT and software. We look to continue to grow that. Life sciences, we've been nationally recognized for the outdoor companies that have chosen to locate here. We also have advertising technology and financial technology, which we've seen some good success in. Future focus would obviously be to continue to grow in our target industries. We think we'll continue to do that. There are a large number of aerospace and defense contracts that are coming online in the next little while that will facilitate some rapid job growth in northern Utah. Some of it here, some of it in Davis County, but it will all impact what happens with what's happening in Ogden at the end of the day. And then it's really interesting. We always try to cultivate new emerging industries. We've had a lot of conversations about what's happening with drones or disruptive transportation technologies or anything else. So it's always a focus, and something we want to do is to stay in front of some of those emerging technologies and make sure if we think they're a good fit that we're in the conversation with them. But I can't recall, my wife and I were having a conversation the other day about all of these things, and just in the last 5 years that have come up and completely disrupted major established industries. So we always try to stay in front of that and understand what's going on around us and to stay in the conversation and be prepared if something comes to us. Business attraction, expansion, and gardening. You can see some of the new companies that we have attracted, and a lot of those are very well known. We've had some great expansion out of Autoliv, Boresight. Amer Sports moved a major distribution center from Tennessee to Ogden, which helped us drop roots in that company. That's an important company for us. NV Composites continues to grow. Fresenius, MarketStar, Northrop Grumman, and Parker Hannifin. I want to say that the vast majority of those jobs that we create come more out of the expansion of existing businesses and the gardening of small businesses and startups and growing that group. Attraction is great. It's a critical part of what we do, but the majority of the growth that we're going to see is in the expansion of those that have already made investments here and are continuing to grow. So we're really excited about that. This slide was the one that Sarah had mentioned. 13 small businesses funded through BIC loans in fiscal year 19. 77% of them, the funded businesses were minority business enterprises. This was, I thought, great. 150 Ogden-based businesses and entrepreneurs graduated last year from the training program supported by the BIC. She does a great job of reaching out and having people come in that have an idea. They're not sure how to get funding, how to set it up, what the legal requirements are, what permitting and business licensing might look like, and they walk them through that whole process. So over 150 based businesses and entrepreneurs having graduated from that. They're very busy down there, and they do a great job with public outreach and really trying to get people the tools they need to be successful here. So appreciated the comments, and we're happy to have her come in and talk a little bit more about what they do. And if any of you want to go through that training program, that's a certificate you can hang on your wall and be very proud of. But they do a great job with that, and we really appreciate that. A lot of these require some capital investments, and as you can see from the expansion, those are some pretty major companies. And the nice thing about that is they pay typically well over the average. So these are good jobs for people that can support families and everything else. And that kind of expansion from those types of companies is really a good bellwether for us. One of the things we have talked about a little bit is during recessions, we don't know when one's coming or not or what might happen. Typically, companies like Autoliv and Boresight and Northrop Grumman and Parker, those are really deep-rooted companies that can weather those kinds of recessions. My wife's in high tech, and if there's a burp or a bubble in the economy, they'll think nothing of putting 200 people out the door and then just planning to hire them back when the economy returns. You don't see those kinds of typically reactionary reactions from companies when they're that rooted and that well funded. Aerospace and defense really does give our local economy a real firm foundation to work from. So we're real happy about that, and we'll continue to focus on that. We hear a lot about what's happening in housing in the neighborhoods. That's been really important to us. I thought it was nice that Ward kind of gave you a warm up to what we're doing when he came up before. Since 2012, we've, as he mentioned, had 100 homes renovated and sold, all low to moderate income, 79 new infill homes built and sold, 14 properties restored to single-family owner-occupied use. I know we all kind of get a chance to interface with that area. One of you live in it. A lot of that, the Jefferson Avenue homes would be a great example of some of those blighted units that were removed. Take this opportunity to thank Jeremy Peterson, who passed legislation. They had $700,000 that went to unit reduction. You got $20,000 per unit. And it's worth mentioning that those were not livable units for the most part. Those were substandard units you wouldn't want anybody to be raising a family or any children in or anything else. So it was to remove 49 blighted units and restore a lot of those carved up mansion homes to owner occupancy was a great step in stabilizing those neighborhoods and really dressing them up. And I think as you go through some of those neighborhoods and some of those project areas, you see there's a ripple effect to that. When they go in, they feel like it's safe, that it's a place they want to live and let their kids ride a bike and walk the dog and everything else. You see a lot of the other properties in that area start to get fixed up and addressed. So this is just what we've done. That ripple effect is really tough to measure, but I think we've all seen that in a lot of those areas. A couple of the key projects, Oakden Bungalows, those did really well. The Stone Hills coming online. And one of the major investments we made collectively a few years ago, both through staff time and anything else we could do, was the New Bridge Elementary. It went from the D Elementary School. That's been a great success, a STEM magnet school. That was a big project and a heavy lift for a lot of our CED and for that neighborhood. And the mix of kids they have there and the ranking and the test scores that have come out of that New Bridge Elementary and investment have been phenomenal. And I believe somebody has a couple of grandkids that were attending that at some point. So we've...
Still are.
What's that?
They still are.
I wish my kids were still in elementary school, but that's another story for another day. You can see what happened there. I know that there were some people upset about the historic nature of the D and the New Bridge, but the test scores and the people that have come to take part in that New Bridge and the neighborhood improvements we've seen around that, I think really do talk about improving the neighborhood and that being a priority. Present efforts, in fiscal year 19, we had $9.6 million in funds dedicated to housing. That, as far as I've been able to tell, is extremely aggressive. We are an older community, so we have needs that some of the other newer communities around us don't have, but that is a really aggressive number. We're lucky that we have a great partnership with HUD. $5.6 million of that came from them. $2.8 million came from the Synchrony bank credit line and loan. And part of the way we catalyze and guarantee that is because you guys have invested in quality neighborhoods and in some of those RDA areas. So that really does give us some synergy and a little bit of leverage to go out and chase some of those lines of credits. Present and future focus, I think we've all collectively talked about creating a balance of housing types, income levels, and households in all neighborhoods. Part of a couple of the key projects for that, Stonehill Homes, the New Bridge area, and 22nd Street. 4 homes are renovated, 6 underway, and coming in the future would be 550 24th Street. Housing affordability is a conversation that everybody's having. If you were spent any time down at the legislature this year, that was a huge issue. We're not seeing it to the level they are in some other areas, Salt Lake, Park City, and Utah County, but it's an issue and it's something we need to get in front of. As chair of Wasatch Front Regional Council, that was something that came up all of the time when we talked at length about what are we doing and where are we going to be in 10 years, 20 years. I want my kids to live here. You want your grandkids to probably continue to live here, and we want them to be able to afford to live here. And so that's going to be a big issue that going forward that we all have to chew on and talk about. Of the $9.6 million dedicated to housing in fiscal year 19, 63% of that was for low and moderate income housing. Since 2012, Ogden City has renovated the 100 units we mentioned before. This is an interesting series of stats here. Low to moderate income housing citywide. Since 2010, 905 new housing units were built across all of Ogden City. 181 of those units, 20% of them were for low to moderate income housing. Non-assisted housing units occupied by LMI households are 29% of Ogden's housing stock. You can see the number of units in that housing stock. Over 7,700 units are between the 80% to 50.1% median income that Ward explained a little bit earlier. About 1,750 are between the 50 to 30.1% of the median income. 161 units are 30% and less than the median income. Assisted low to moderate income housing units include 2,650 LIHTC, which stands for Low Income Housing Tax Credits, Section 8, and other supported units, and we have 943 housing vouchers. This brings me to one of my real topical and favorite things as you look at one of our priorities that has really changed what's happening in our downtown along 25th Street and up into the historic area. Arts, culture, and events. We've really believed that this enhances the quality of life, builds a sense of community. If you've ever been to any of the Twilight concerts or Farmers Market or anything else that happened downtown, you really get a sense that it's a unique place. One of the things I love about Ogden is that it's a fairly decent-sized city with 90,000 people, but it's got a real heartbeat in the downtown where people come together and they really like to see each other and spend time together. And we've been able to create a whole bunch of different events that make that happen. The last bullet on the arts, culture, and events make Ogden a destination for visitors and new residents. It's worth noting that we've seen an 81% increase in the transient room tax collections in the last, I believe it's 8 years. Those are people that come, get a hotel room, they pay that transient room tax, that comes back to us or it goes back to the county, and we're able to do a lot of different unique things with that transient room tax. That's not a tax we pay. All of the tourism taxes together, they've seen almost a tripling in the last 10 years. That's leased vehicle tax, restaurant tax, and transient room tax. The county collects the majority of that. We're able to do some unique things with that here locally, but have almost a tripling in that with almost all of the infrastructure that's tourism related being in the Ogden area. That's a great thing for us. And if you see all the new restaurants and everything that have come online, I think you can understand how you make a big jump like that in a pretty short period of time. Invite y'all out to the Spike 150. That's going to be the major event of the year. We've been planning that for months and months and months. I can tell you that a lot of people will breathe a huge sigh of relief come Sunday and Monday when those hordes disperse a little bit and we get back to our regular day jobs that we've had to kind of stiff arm for a little bit, but come down, it'll be really unique. I don't know if it's been on your social media, but on mine, you have a whole group of people they kind of refer to as foamers, people that foam at the mouth for steam trains and everything else, that have been driving all the way from Evanston at the train speed, which is probably about 40 miles an hour on the freeway, jumping off at every rest stop and everything else to take pictures of this when it comes in. So there's a lot of excitement about the Spike 150 and this reenactment and the meeting of those two really historic trains coming into the downtown. They're telling us to plan for 200,000 people. We've done a lot of cleanup projects. We've really worked hard to dress it up. Appreciate all the volunteers that came out for Make a Difference Day and everything else to really put our best foot forward. So we're looking forward to that. Obviously, Ogden Twilight is a huge deal. We'll have 10 shows again this year. It's interesting to note as we talk about tourism that almost 50% of the ticket sales came from zip codes in the Salt Lake County area. And I had conversations with people that work in the Salt Lake and Arts and Cultural District. And what did you guys do for Twilight? How are you pulling the bands that you're pulling? And how have you eclipsed what we're doing down here with ours? And I would say that's because we've got a phenomenal promoter and Jared Allen, and we've got a really unique downtown. You can come walk in, be a part of, ride the train in. It's a really unique collection of experiences that's made Ogden Twilight really successful. Thank our arts group upstairs, the First Friday Art Stroll. If you haven't been down, it's got a lot of great energy, and they do great things and bring all those galleries together and to give artists platforms to work from. Farmers Market is always one of our favorite things. I'd have my wife make you a BLT from the Volker's bread and the heirloom tomatoes, but that is my favorite thing over the summer. That's continues to grow and is very busy. Historic 25th Street car show is always amazing. Harvest Moon and Christmas Village. And I would say about those major events, we've talked about this in the past, but Ogden has been recognized for years as being the second most charitable community in the United States of America when it comes to volunteer hours given and charitable donations. And these events don't happen without that spirit of volunteerism and people that are willing to show up. Ogden Marathon should also be on there. That's the week after the Golden Spike, but I know a number of you have volunteered for that, and it's always fun getting up at 3:30 in the morning and for the last handful of years standing in the rain and cheering 10,000 plus runners on. Those things don't happen without the sense of community we have here, and so it's always good to call out the volunteers that make a lot of those things tick. Future efforts for arts, culture, and events enhance and increase the iconic art, public gathering spaces, and programming. We've seen a lot of activity and a lot of attention, as I've mentioned, as some of these buildings and prior vacant spaces have taken life and come together. Focus on communications. That'll continue to be a focus for us, letting people know about the great things happening in Ogden. As we had that pop-up studio interview yesterday, both the chief and I mentioned one of the challenges is we have some old beliefs along the Wasatch Front about what Ogden used to be. They haven't been back to see how it's changed and how it's transformed. And even the female anchor said, I took my kids up to the junction and we got in the iFly and then we walked down the street to have dinner and we were on historic 25th Street. And I kind of grew up with this sense that might not be the best family activity. And he said, we were perfectly safe. It was amazing everything that you guys have done. So the focus on communications and bringing people in to experience Ogden with new eyes is really important. Our arts and events group also opened the corner. If you haven't seen it, you got to go look at it. The vision is for it to be an epicenter for information and ticketing for all events. Arts and attractions in Ogden. That's another outreach piece. So people are walking around downtown, then if it's open and there's that activity there, they can go ask questions, get information, get tickets for events, and really have another touch point with us as a community and how they can get involved and figure that out. We had 3,500 interactions with the public from the opening date. If you recall, that was a little bit of a rough corner and a rough building for a long time. So we appreciated their efforts in livening that up and having that be part of that continuous district along those blocks. So as we talked through some of the different tools for economic development, it's important to look at the vision. Obviously, we're going to continue to develop the 2050 master plan for Union Station and downtown. That expanded tax base to keep pace with increasing service costs. We've talked a lot about that. On a lot of levels, we have the same service levels as we did in 1988 when some of the new truth in taxation laws and other things came online. So it's tough to keep up with that expanding service costs, especially in this kind of economy. We've all been involved in the conversations about people coming in and targeting some of our best employees, whether they're public safety or other unique skill-oriented groups, and being able to pay them a lot more. So, I mean, the service costs for providing those services continue to escalate way more rapidly than we can keep up with, but expanding the tax base can help us keep pace with that. And then obviously we want to update the general plan and incorporate hybrid form-based planning methods as part of that. I don't know that we have the resources to do the entire general plan, but as we talked about earlier, there are a lot of elements that we're working on that can play into that, and that'll be something we continue to work on. You've heard all the estimates that in the next 30 years, the Wasatch Front's population is going to double. It will go from 3 million people now in that 90-mile corridor from Box Elder to end of Utah County. 3 million people being crammed in that 90-mile corridor that's bookended by the mountains and the lake. I mean, we've really got to do good master planning and how we're able to accommodate that. If we don't, we're going to snuff out the quality of life that we all love for living here. And as I'm talking about transportation, I'll give you a quick little story about that and why this is important to me. My little brothers live in Kaysville. I have 3 little brothers that live in Kaysville. They wanted to go skiing one day last March, and they're 40 miles from Snowbird. It snowed, so that always brings more people, but they thought, we'll leave early, we'll go drive down to Snowbird, and we'll go ski some powder at Snowbird. They left at 7 in the morning, 40 miles, got to Snowbird at noon. Took them 5 hours to drive 40 miles. And if we don't find ways to incorporate more transportation and plan for this growth that's coming, we're going to snuff out the quality of life that is really important to me, and it will certainly keep our kids here. As chair of Wasatch Front Regional Council, we talked about a lot of the transportation things upcoming. A lot of you know that Lime Scooters has a 90-day, well, it's not 90 days anymore, but they had a 90-day kind of experimental window. And we're 18 days in, is that what you mentioned? 18 days in, those have been ridden 31,000 miles, which is pretty amazing. We've seen videos of some poor scooter decision making, but that will happen with anything. But we want to see that work. That's a real important part of the UTA first and last mile, how people access transportation. Their studies have shown that if it's more than a mile, they tend to not use public transportation. So if they have easy ways to get around that are inexpensive, they're more likely to access public transportation. That's really important. With some of the transportation funding the voters voted on a number of years ago, we have a lot more available now for sidewalk improvements. Grand Avenue Promenade, we're really excited about that. That has been a model for the state. We were able to get a tremendous amount of Tiger Grant money and other monies to create that complete street. We want to continue to have those kinds of partnerships where we can tie our community together through transportation. If we have to get in our car, drive everywhere we're going, you really don't have a sense of community. If you get out and walk, you feel safe doing that. You're taking your dog, you're riding a bike, a scooter if you're so inclined. Accessing public transportation, it's an entirely different experience when you're in a community. So investing in transportation is going to be very important. It was fun kind of being on that BRT in the Provo-Orem area and seeing all the students and business people get in and kind of talk and kind of bump in and have creative connections and not see them as stressed as they typically are when you're driving around and hunting and pecking for a parking spot and everything else. If we do the transportation planning right and people can get around and we put the density in the right areas, we can continue to have a really robust quality of life here, and that's been a priority and will continue to be a priority as we move forward. This is a graph of what we've been doing over the last number of years. As you look at that, I want to just note that the amount of investment and energy is still the same, but we had two in 2017. We had that decline in it. We had two major projects that were completed and fell off the funding list, and that was Harrison Boulevard North and the Skyline Drive connection. And so we have a lot more coming, as I'll show you here in just a minute, so we'll see that growth curve continue pretty dramatically. We have a couple of things that are coming. The additional transit infrastructure projects. Right now, they're considering a downtown trolley as part of UTA. They're doing a test piece for that. That'll be here this weekend. They have 4 trolley buses that are coming from, they're originally scheduled to be in use in Farmington. And they would do a circular loop like that in the downtown. As you can see, Monday through Saturday service every 20 minutes is the proposal right now for a real nominal figure, and that'll be in the budget that you guys can look at. We'll obviously have a lot more additional street maintenance I'll show you about. And we got a $660,000 grant from WFRC and UTA to start the Green Bike Share program. That's programmed for next year. We've had conversations about trying to move that up to this fiscal year as Lime comes on and we start to move people around and have alternative forms of transportation. Having a few different things that come together we think would be healthier and would quicker change the paradigm into how to get around downtown. And so we're real grateful for that. And you'll see Green Bike coming online soon as well. And interestingly enough, they didn't see a dip at all with scooter travel and docked bike share programs in Salt Lake. So they're very optimistic that you can blend them both and that transportation ecosystem is going to require everything for it to be as robust as we would all like it to be. These are some major project timeline estimates and the time in the year that we're talking about. Give you a little background on that. The 20th Street Wasatch Front Regional Council on WACOG funding came to about $6.5 million for that. 26th Street, the city and WACOG at $4.8 million. Best estimates for the next two are the BRT project for $65 to $70 million is the total cost figure to that. $400K has been committed from the city. Again, those partnerships are absolutely critical if you're going to get any major infrastructure done. 23rd Street is estimated at $2 million. that hasn't been approved yet, but hopefully that will be in partnership with WACOG and 25th Street at $3.5 million, and hopefully that as well will be part of the partnership with WACOG. And I know that Councilman Heyer was on that transportation subcommittee for a long time, so you know how that works and can kind of give everybody an update as to that process. So those still need to go through that process, but we've had some good success there, and we hope we can have some more as we move forward. City staffing recommendations. We all know that everybody runs really lean and mean here. We are recommending to you for consideration an increase to the number of full-time employees by a total of net 11 positions. As you can see, 16 positions total are being added, but 5 are being eliminated. I'll get into what those positions are in a little bit, but we really do believe that our employees are by far our greatest asset here. We get far more dedicated, hardworking, committed people here than I've seen in any form of government I've been with. I'm always amazed at the passion and commitment people bring to their work here, and we're lucky to have them here. As we've done for the last number of years, the first thing we recommend as we go into the budget retreat is to put a 4% merit increase for all of our employees on the board and say, how do we do everything after we prioritize this first? They are by far our biggest asset, and we want them to know that. Buildings aren't anything without the people in them, and a lot of those key successes we've talked about don't happen without a lot of commitment from a lot of people here. So that's always what we recommend first in the budget. Obviously, we're preparing an organizational compensation study. We've talked about that. But again, that 4% is dependent on you approving the final budget, and we'll look forward to those conversations. But that is the employee wage recommendation we have for you today and moving forward. But we do want those employees to know that they're our number one asset and our number one priority. Recommendation, the staff recreation staff recommendations. We know that we're really thin in this area. Public services, Jay and Ed Bridge have worked hard on this, finding one recreation supervisor, one supervisor, which is a reclass, and then some more public services and parks maintenance technicians and crew leader for those that run out and take care of and maintain our sports facilities out there. Also, some temporary staff funding for Lauren Farr Pool increased by $33,000 for a total annual cost of $283,000 and change. And yes, that is Lauren Farr Pool and the Sandlot photo. I don't know if Wendy Peppercorn's oiling or not, but Ogden City Police staff recommendations. These police positions are funded by a new homelessness grant, which we're really happy about. One RTCC supervisor, and one equipment and logistics coordinator. And one of the things we're really proud of over this year, you guys have made some tough choices in the last 3 years in terms of investing in public safety overall. You can see what's happened within crime over the last 4 years here. Reductions, a little small burp in 2016, but if you look at what's happened, we really do need to credit that department and the person who won Chief of the Year just a couple of weeks ago in St. George, Chief Randy Watt, on a 20+% reduction in crime over the last year. Those are investments you've all made, that support you all gave them, and that is, I think, the return on investment you all made in what's happened with public safety in our community, and so I applaud you for that, and we're really excited about that. I'd also like to point out that the RTCC has had recognition from all over the country. They've had different universities come in and study it. They've presented at different conferences all over the U.S. in terms of how they've targeted proactive policing and data-oriented policing instead of just passive patrolling and everything else. We've seen phenomenal success out of there. We're really proud of that, and I think it's going to really lead out in the near future. There was a story just a little while ago about some of the cameras and other things we're able to plug into and data we're able to pull from those things that would be the equivalent, I believe, 8 full-time employees was the estimate. So the investments they've made in the RTCC have really paid dividends, and we are really excited about some of the emerging technology as well that we think will lead us way into the future. And this will be the last slide, but I think this is a great graph, and that's a trend line that we really want to follow. This is the general fund unsigned fund balance. As you look at the overall city's financial health, you look at 2011 to 2018, that's over $6 million additional dollars in unassigned general fund balance that we've been able to create. We want to see that growth curve continue. Your continued investments in some of these projects that have paid dividends will continue with that. But as you look at the overall financial health of the community, we're going in the right direction, and that has not always been the case. So we appreciate your support, and I really do want to thank again all of our department directors that participated in all these. You could hear all of the moaning and groaning as we kept setting more dates and more dates and more dates to really go through it and pour over it. Again, a huge thank you to Lisa Stout and her staff. They took notes on every single comment that was made and that came up, did the research, brought it back, and we feel real comfortable that I feel real comfortable that this is probably the most balanced budget we've had in our time. Again, all the department directors voted unanimously on this, and we really do look forward to the conversations with you all and getting you the information and a level of comfort or, answers to questions you have as we go into this. We want you to have ownership of this as well, to be excited about it, and we're certainly looking forward to the next few weeks of conversation and discussion. So it'll be in the full budget and all the detail. Is that tomorrow morning? This will be online soon. Everything will be pushed, and I know that we start staff meetings with your council staff on Monday and through the week next week. And so, again, please reach out with any questions you have. We're honored to present you with this. We look forward to your consideration and to answering any questions. Thank you, Mayor.
Quick question, Mayor. Was the 31,000 miles benchmark, was that surpassed their benchmarks, or?
That was just in the first 18 days. And we don't have access to the rest of what other cities have done. So it's hard to put that in comparison with any other community on their introduction. But that just seems kind of amazing that, the 18 days they were ridden 31,000 miles. So
okay,
yeah, kind of a unique gee whiz.
Scooters were found track in Plain City. Don't know if that was the users
Yeah.
or if someone actually rode them.
And before they even came, I saw some scooters that people put on Front Runner, rode from Salt Lake up here and rode around till the battery died, and then who knows what they did with it at that point. But they get around pretty fast, and they're ubiquitous. I talked to a few people about it, but I took my kids on a trip for my daughter's senior trip, and every major city we went to 4, they were everywhere. Because you can't drive a car in those cities, there's nowhere to park, and so it's either bike share or scooters for a lot of people, or public transportation, and that's how they get around, because those roads were built narrow and they just can't make it anymore. But that's an interesting fact that we thought you'd enjoy.
Thank you.
So juicers, not to be confused with foamers, correct?
Correct. Okay. And there are many kinds of juicers. He's just talking about the scooter chargers.
Yeah.
People that charge up
Yeah.
the scooters. Yeah.
I've interacted with a lot of different kinds of juicers in my day. It's good to see what you young kids are using these days. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. We really appreciate the presentation. Any other questions for the mayor before we take action? I think you said you're looking forward to the next few weeks of conversations, but I think it was more like the next few months.
It will be.
This is going to be
all the way to July.
Yeah.
I know, very end of June. So we appreciate it. But I know how many late nights you spend working on this. I know all of the commitment and everything else. So we really do appreciate it. And as we put this out, I think everybody can be reassured that we've given a thorough evaluation, and you guys have done absolutely your due diligence with it as well. And there will never be everything for everybody. And so tough choices need to be made, and we appreciate and respect the fact that you guys are working on that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you.
Chair Nadolski.
Yeah.
It might be worth mentioning that I believe that the mayor's budget will be online first thing tomorrow by about 10 or so.
Yeah, I think you mentioned that by about 10. Okay. Oh, man, we're losing them.
It's past 8.
I think
that's my fault. That's on me. I apologize.
Do you want us to go ahead and reserve that Union Station again? Because I think you feel like 100 years already surpassed again.
They got the merit badge.
They definitely got it.
Have a good night, you guys. Thanks for joining us. Okay.
Where's our merit badge?
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, I think we have some action to take on the mayor's presentation.
Okay. You mind if I make a motion?
I do not mind one bit.
Chair Nadolski, I would propose that we accept the mayor's proposed fiscal year 2019-2020 budget for review.
I second it.
We have a motion by Councilmember Heyer, second by Councilmember Stevens to accept for review the mayor's proposed fiscal year 2019-2020 budget. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Mayor, we appreciate the presentation. Obviously, a lot of work went into the presentation, but preparation for the presentation most especially. We'll be sure to honor the effort that's been put into it. Okay, next item is new business. This is a new process for the council. And to do so, I'm going to step down behind the mic and assume the uncomfortable position, but I'm going to hand the gavel to Vice Chair Chaburka. Just in case I get out of line, she can snap me back in line. Yep.
Chair or Vice Chair, just so you know, there was a young scout that left in tears, and I don't know if that was because of the presentation
because
of
he
the
had to
mayor's
go?
budget or that he had to go. I wasn't
He wanted
sure.
to stay longer. We're going
was
to recruit
really-
him for city council.
Please don't make me go home. I want to hear more.
I want to hear it one more time.
No problem. Yeah, more data. Thanks. Okay, this is different. You're right.
It is weird, huh?
It's
We
quite
should all
different.
try that
Yeah.
this year.
But it does feel good to get out of my seat. I apologize that you guys haven't. Well, thank you. This is a little bit of a new approach. Clearly, we've heard from the mayor what his proposed budget is. We know about a lot of hard work that's gone in to that proposal from the administration. And we wanted to take this opportunity and to set a new standard for us, a new normal for us in our approach as well, so that we can show the community the process that we went through as well, and the process that we will go through as we review the mayor's budget. In years past, we have used a number of different processes to identify what the council's priorities are. And here is a list of the FY17 to 2019 council priorities. And if you look through the list, they're all important things, or things that you're still going to see important themes in the mayor's budget as well as in our priorities for the coming budget. But you can also tell that they are themes, and that there are a lot of things that can fit within those themes. And so we want to maybe be a little bit more specific to make sure that some of the things that we hear from the community are accounted for in our budget process, so that we can make sure we're looking at what the mayor proposes versus what the community is asking us for, and then we can make the best decision moving forward. So this year in the FY 2020 council budget process, this started all the way back in August 7th, 2018, when we adopted the 2019 budget, of which we're operating under currently. This bespeaks to a comment that the mayor made in his presentation about the speed at which government works. It's slow maybe by design, but it's also slow because it's difficult. A lot of heavy lifting went into getting to that point to adopt the current budget. And then immediately following, on September 25th, 2018, we convened in a strategy session so that we can discuss a 5-year strategic planning process that we were proposing. So at that time, we were pretty burned out and exhausted from the budget process, put ourselves right back into strategy sessions so that we can talk about the next year's budget process, in fact, the next 5 years budgeting. And that was a difficult step, but that's when we really articulated the approach that we want to take for the next 5 years, where we will be able to model the community's budget needs on a 5-year basis, but also by incorporating community feedback. And we'll get to more of that here in a little while. So in January 8th, 2019, that's when the mayor and his administration convened for their first budget retreat. And at that time, we present our budget priorities to the mayor and his administration for their consideration ahead of their process. And then in January 2019, that's when we began to kick off our 5-year strategic plan process and get that underway. And you can start to see, if the community's watching this presentation, you can start to see that maybe the council's budgeting process and our priorities of identification are falling a little bit behind schedule from the mayor's administration process. And that's not a surprise given how hard it's been to get to this point, but this has also been a multi-year effort to get to this point. And we can see every year a little bit of progress in the work that we've done together to get a little bit closer to being more proactive, to get to a point where we can present our priorities to the mayor and his administration by the time they convene to their budget sessions. Then they'll know what we're going to be expecting or looking for when we review it, and they can try and find what they think is most appropriate, and then we'll have a lot more collaborative and communicative process at that point. So that's where the council's trying to get to. This year is another step closer. We're still not quite there, but we're confident we'll get there next year, and we'll share some more with that. So in March 12th, 2019 strategy session again, we convened to discuss what our council budget priorities are, and then again on April 30th to identify what those budget priorities and the process that we're going to use to review the budget. So this is something that we've never done before. Thankful to Vice Chair Chaburka for leading us through a really well thought out, really well led kind of brainstorming activity that I don't think, at least in my time here, that we have ever done in this council. And it felt good for me to be able to share with you what I find to be important, the things that I hear from community members. But I have to tell you that I was really heartened to hear from you what you hear. And it was really heartening to see where some of our priorities already overlap with what we just saw in the presentation from the mayor, and where our priorities overlap with one another. And that was a really good process. Thank you, Vice Chair Chaburka, for facilitating that. That's something that you have a gift for, and I do not. But part of being a leader, like I said, was recognizing what you're not good at. And it's okay to suck at some things, right? That's one, and for me. So we came out of that strategy session with tons of stickers on the wall, right? And we put it down into some things that make sense for people and help make sense for the community. So as we went through that process, we identified that promoting active and healthy living, again, that's the theme that we presented in past budget priority presentations. But we got more specific. We're really interested in placemaking in all parks. You're going to start to see a theme in the council's priorities that we recognize all of the difference that we're making in our bricks and mortar efforts as a community to develop into the community that we all want to become. And we also want to make sure that we're mindful of our investments in the people who live here. It's the people who build the bricks and mortar, who live here and recreate here and so on, that we want to make sure that we're accounting for their needs as well. And Councilmember Blair has long wished for a splash pad. Again, we saw that. You were, I don't know, you've got quite a vision, because it took us 9 years to get through a recreation strategic plan that identified our need for a splash pad that Councilmember Blair identified, 10 years ago? So we paid a lot of money to get the same answer that Bart already gave us. But Councilmember White is really interested in another dog park. I think, again, that's another item that's identified in our recreation master plan. So it dovetails really nicely with what we're already looking to do in the future, and we'd like to look at it in the current proposal. We're really interested as well in making sure that our parks and our places where people gather account for all ages and all abilities. We want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to participate and to use the facilities that we have. And of course, youth recreation, it's something that I'm really passionate about. I'll just mention now on the record that my daughter pitched a shutout last night, her first pitching ever. Her coach should definitely get credit for that. We're getting a lot of feedback from the community, obviously, and I see the feedback. I feel it with my own children and my own coaching experiences, that the community really wants to strengthen our existing programs. And so I personally really appreciate the recommendation that the administration made to bolster some of the resources for youth recreation, but I also recognize I'm one of 7. And so that's something that's going to have to be vetted by the rest of the council. But we'd also like to make sure that we incorporate opportunities for everybody in Ogden, not only all ages and all abilities, but all ethnicities as well. And we do still want to continue to evaluate a boxing program for Ogden. This is something that's happening in North Ogden already. There's a tremendous amount of clamor for this. We may not hear about it ourselves, but I guarantee you the clamor is there. And if we make some effort to go and visit the facility in North Ogden, we might be able to get a sense for what that demand really is. And also not only the demand, but the ability for the kids to change their lives as a result of that activity. It's something that we think there's opportunities maybe to incorporate, the chief already left, but incorporate how our police officers interact with our youth through that program. It's what other communities are doing. We'd love to evaluate possibilities for that, to give our youth good opportunities, but give our police maybe opportunities to mentor those youth, to build relationships beyond the relationships that aren't as healthy while that are happening throughout the community. And of course, the topic of blue zones has come up in the past. Councilmember Heyer has led that initiative in the past, but we're also interested in other similar healthy living initiatives. The blue zones concept is really strong. It might be expensive, but it's also really inclusive. It's collaborative. It includes anchor institutions from throughout the community. We really want to start to look at healthy living initiatives. And it really dovetails with what the mayor presented in terms of your priorities for making sure that we connect with our transportation use, having these first mile, last mile opportunities and so on. In order to really make use of those transportation alternatives, you need to have a healthy and vibrant community of people. And so this is just really similar to that and builds on those priorities. So enhancing community outreach and engagement, this is something that's has always been important to this council. We hope that the community recognizes the importance that we've placed in it. We also hope that the community recognizes that we continue to improve in it. It's not something that we're going to be fantastic at overnight. We're certainly going to make mistakes, but we do hope the community knows that the council really values community outreach and engagement. And we'll get to more on how we're really ultimately doing that and hope to do it and set the tempo for the long term. We hope to engage and cooperate with community partners. Again, the mayor had a slide with a lot of community partners. It's clear when we talk about our staff that we do have a lean workforce, especially for a community of our size. And we're really mindful of the work that the Jay Louders do for us and how much burden we put on your back, Jay, and so many others within the ranks. And we really like the idea of branching out and creating community-driven partnerships where we can do more with the little that we have through others, leverage one another's time, talent, and treasury. It's what makes Ogden Ogden, and we think there's more opportunity to continue, and we hope to contribute to that. We will be completing and implementing a community-driven 5-year strategic plan. Again, more on that coming. And it's always our hope that we can become more customer service oriented. A couple of times tonight that has come up in, excuse me, in our public process, that we got some feedback from some folks, but we didn't give feedback back. We want to make sure that the people who work here, who live here, who are paying for our services, know that we are listening to them and that we are that we value them. And so as we work through these customer service oriented issues, we're really excited to see the recommendation from the mayor to maybe set aside some positions and add FTEs, because we have more services needed given the demand and the growth that our community is experiencing. So really appreciate making those recommendations, and we look forward to getting into the details. Another theme that's been really important to the council is cultivating arts and culture. We really wish to expand diversity in art and cultural events, programs, and projects. This is something that we talked about, and we're going to be talking more and more over the coming months and probably years of the conversation that we started in Denver about what our community is going to look like in the long term and how we're going to develop. And we talked about making sure that we account for arts and cultures and diversity with real intention, just to make sure to know that we value it, to make sure that we nurture it and provide for it. And that's something that we want to continue to do and to maybe accelerate if we can. And we also want to increase the amount of public art in our community. We see those as really, really splashy. I've heard someone call it a community kiss in a League of Cities and Towns meeting. It's just one of those things that you can do for a low cost and get a big bang for our buck. And we're getting a ton of bang, as we know that, as the mayor mentioned, Park City wishes they could do what we're doing. Only in Ogden, right? But one idea that has been discussed, and this is something that gets to arts in a different way than we have in the past, is to develop an incubator kitchen and a multicultural food market type of an idea. This is something that we've talked about in the past. We've had council members to visit Terminal Market in Philadelphia. It's something that really energizes some of us. And the culinary arts are a really important ethnic contributor to arts and culture in our community. And we thank Councilmember Lopez for bringing that perspective to the council and therefore to the community. And this is something that I think when we started to talk about it, it really started to hype all of us up a little bit. And it's just a neat idea. It's not something that we as a council can oversee the implementation of, but we think it's important that we start the conversation with the administration and maybe identify opportunities that we can help incubate some of these food and culinary art opportunities, while also with intention preserving and supporting those ethnic and diversity opportunities that we already have and the treasures that we already have. Ensuring fiscal sustainability. Again, we're going to be implementing this 5-year financial model guided by a community-driven strategic plan. So the 5-year financial model is something that we've been working toward for years. We want to make sure we're looking at our budgeting not only this year, next year, 1 year at a time, but to look at it over a longer term and to make sure that we're accounting for longer term needs so that we can budget for them now or account for them and how we approach those. That is really important, and I think that's going to really transform the way that we budget. And when added to our continued transparency and communication and the way that we're working toward a community-driven plan, I think it really has the opportunity to be a powerful model for our community. And set aside percentage of funding for future projects. This is something where this is probably one of our highest priorities as we look to the current fiscal year. Again, I'm really dying to show you guys some results or some information about the community plan, which we don't quite have yet, but we really want to make sure as the community is giving us all of this feedback that we are rewarding their civility with something in return. We want them to see us making budget decisions that reflect the feedback that we get from the community. And so if that means that we have to set aside a small amount of funding for future projects that account for what we hear from the community, that might be something we look to do. But it's important just to note that we are, with intention in this budget cycle, looking to fund things that the community is telling us they desperately want. For economic development, we're going to have a big budget to chew through, but we also want to make sure, and this starts to get into more policy decisions that can happen after the budget, but it starts to also speak to a broader year-long work plan approach for the council, where we'd like to identify and develop some RDA benchmarks and metrics so that we are kind of tracking on what we think the big picture of development is in our community, and that we feel comfortable as we're making individual decisions, knowing how that individual decision kind of relates to the bigger picture. We definitely are interested in developing an affordable housing plan that's tailored to our unique housing needs. This is something that was also in the mayor's presentation. It's something that we're all hearing about continually. We know we have housing plans that are already in place. We've got lots of information, and the council looks forward to, in the fall, doing a fact-finding session so we can put all of that stuff together in our minds. It's been a really complicated maze of information. Because in the end, we really do hope to provide housing for all ages and abilities, for all abilities to afford, and to make sure that the cost to live here is not a barrier to participate in what we're doing here. If that was a barrier for me, I can tell you I wouldn't be here, but it wasn't, and that's what's given me the level of satisfaction that I've had here, and I think that probably applies for a lot of you as well. We just said it really simple: address aging infrastructure needs. This could have been like 10 slides, but we didn't want the Boy Scouts to be here any longer than they already were. Wish they were here to see that. But we have a tremendous amount of infrastructure need, and this is something that we clearly all need to make sure that we keep our eye on every single year, and we want to make sure that we're not falling further behind while we try to set ourselves further ahead in our future needs. There was a lot of conversation about employees as assets, and we could not agree more. This is something that I think the council and the administration are really lock and step on in terms of our employees being our most important assets. This is something that has really concerned us for quite some time. We want to make sure we're always providing competitive wages and benefits for our employees. But we've already done a lot of work with department audits, and we want to make sure that we're looking at those management audits and providing for the most lean management of our departments as we can to make sure that we're getting the most service that we can out of the dollars that we're spending. But I think what is probably hidden within some of those FTE recommendations from the mayor is some of this workload level issue. We've got, like mentioned before, the jail outers of Ogden have shouldered a tremendous burden for a long, long time. And we are very mindful as a council of those burdens that they've carried. And we don't want to burn them out. We want to support them. We want to keep them And we know that that includes competitive wages and benefits, but we also know that burnout can go beyond wages and benefits. So we're really excited to look at what those recommendations are moving forward. And hopefully there can be creative incentives such as flex time and other tools that maybe can be used on the administrative side. If there's needs for funding or for policies on our side, those are things we're interested in discussing as well. Finally, the community strategic planning sessions. I hope everybody who is watching this, which probably aren't many now, but maybe more later, have participated in the community strategic planning sessions. I think, how many we're just under 20 to date, Janine? Do you know?
Many sessions.
How many planning sessions in person? We've had focus groups, community sessions. It's somewhere between 15 and 20, I think. But every time I talk to Mackie, the number goes up. So, and as we've begun to engage with people, the number of people engaging continues to go up, and the quality of the conversation continues to go up. And we also recognize that themes are starting to build really quickly as to what people want to see from us. And this has been a really healthy process that we are really excited about. And we want to use this process to be able to build into our council budget process for the long term. So a community-based budgeting process is much more than us paying attention to what people say when they call us or email us. This is a much more robust way of, rather than saying Ben thinks recreation is important, but Councilmember Heyer thinks this is important, and then us trying to fight over it. This is not us fighting over what those priorities are. It's the community telling us what their priorities are in a very robust and statistical way. And for us to be able to choose, after we have identified our priorities, which ones of theirs are we going to be able to help provide first. So this is a new way of operating for this city, and we hope it's the new way for a long time, so that we can make sure that people know that when they speak to us, that we listen to them and that we provide for them, because at the end of the day, we are here to serve. And that's something that's a really important value that runs through all of the council members and administration, and something we're very, very proud of. So May 6th, it was actually May 7th this morning, we sent a letter to the mayor. This was professional courtesy to the mayor to sort of forecast what we presented here tonight. But it's also an example of what we hope to send to the mayor next year before you convene in your budget retreats. We'd like to send you a letter with a formal communication thanking you for the work you're about to do and your administration is about to do, and then foreshadowing what our priorities are for that year. So we've got our stuff together when you come together to get your things together. And we think that's the most robust way for us as a community to be budgeting. And then you bring it back and then we see how it compares. And that just is, to us, resonates in terms of transparency and effectiveness. And it really, we can tell already from the community feedback that that type of approach resonates with the people we serve too. So here we are on May 7th. We received the mayor's proposed FY 2020 budget. In May and June, we'll be reviewing and finalizing that FY 2020 budget. We're going to be receiving the preliminary results from our strategic planning process. So as we've done this community feedback process, we have been fully identifying next year as the target year to incorporate it into our budgeting. But we also recognize that it's coming together so well and so quickly that maybe we can begin to incorporate it this year. That's why our timeline's a little off. But Mackie is scheduled for hip surgery, so we'll be supporting him in that and making sure that we get preliminary results, things that are really popping out from the community feedback, so that we can take it back into the budget process and try and find some of those set aside monies for those projects that people see and feel and get to experience an immediate impact from the process that we've undertaken. On June 25th, 2019, we'll be adopting the FY 2020 budget. And in August and September, we'll adopt a final. So once we wrap up the FY 2020 budget, again, we'll convene again into strategic retreat as a council to start for the next fiscal year cycle. And that's where we will be able to review in August and September and adopt a final 5-year strategic plan based on the feedback we get from the community. And then in September and October, we'll convene in that strategy session to be able to identify our budget priorities. And in January 2020, that's when the administration again will convene in their budget retreats and we will be in a much better position to share the council's FY 2021 priorities at that time, which we hope to reflect the community's priorities as well, and that we hope you will find to be a very helpful amount of work that we've done. So just for review, the fiscal year 2020 council budget process schedule. And on August 7th, we adopted the current fiscal year's budget. In September 25th, we convened in the strategy session. And then January 8th, administration began to convene to dig through budgets and proposals. March 12th, we did another strategy session to identify our priorities. And April 30th, we again, strategy session, budget priorities, and then identify the process that we're going to use, which we've outlined today. This morning, we sent the letter to the mayor, of which we recognize is late, but we hope you appreciate the courtesy and the foreshadowing of what's to come next year. But in May 7th, we received the budget tonight. We'll review and finalize that FY 2020 budget over the course of this month and next. And then we'll receive preliminary results from our strategic planning process throughout that time. And we'll make every effort we can to try and incorporate it and share what we're doing with the community so that on June 25th, we can adopt a FY 2020 budget for this community. The preliminary fiscal year 2021 budget process schedule, August, September 2019, adopt the 5-year plan, September 2019 strategy session, January 2020 first admin budget retreat. I think we've been through that enough. So thankfully the chief left so we could use the tagline still untamed. But thank you everybody for all of the work that we've done to get to this point. I don't know that the community recognizes all of the work that's gone into this. That's part of the purpose of this presentation tonight, is to share the work that we've all invested in. And it goes to the administration, it goes to the council, it goes to the staff, it goes to everybody behind us. This has been a ton of work, and we want the community to know the amount of work that we are doing on their behalf and just how much is going into changing our work culture to make sure that we are cooperative and collaborative and communicative. And even though we do disagree at times, it does not mean that we dislike each other. It does not mean that one side's bad or the other side's worse. It just means that we have a role to play, that we have a process at play on both sides, and that at the end of the day, there are a lot of people that have eyes on this city's resources to make sure that this city gets the best service that they possibly can. So thank you to all of you for everything you've done. Thank you for sitting through the presentation. And finally, congratulations to Kaylee Caldwell. She has been nominated as a presidential scholar, U.S. presidential scholar, 155 in the nation out of...
She actually won that award. I appreciate that. But yeah, she won the U.S. Presidential Scholar Award. 5,200 applied, and they picked 161, and she got that good news today. So she's worked really hard for it. I appreciate that.
Congratulations to the family. We go through all this budget stuff. We talk about all these policy things. We have all these disagreements. But case in point, the things that matter the most, the accomplishments of your daughter. Of course, there's the shutout pitching effort by my daughter as well.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, everybody.
Is there anybody that has any comments or any questions?
I would like to make a comment. I am very appreciative of the refinement of the process that's going on. It was apparent to me at the end of last year's budget that we did need to we had a tax increase last year, and we heard from a lot of people that while they understood the need for the tax increase, it was also hurtful for their budgets, their personal budgets. And so this process where we can kind of refine how we use our money is going to help us to also refine the services that we provide for the residents, and hopefully everybody gets lifted by this process. I very much look at our process with the administration, even though we are a divided government. We are partners, and so they help us, we help them. We use their people, they use our people, and that's the way it's supposed to work, in the very best way. So I appreciate what has happened. You mentioned that it was a multi-year process getting us to this point. I think it'll still continue to be refined over the next while.
Certainly.
But boy, I feel like we're in a good place right now. So thanks to all who have participated.
Team effort indeed. Thanks.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I just have a quick comment. It's come a long way since the day that we would sit down individually with Bill Cook and say, okay, what are your projects and priorities? And, you know, I'd come with a list of 10 and you'd come with a list of 10 or 20. And it never got to a point where we were able to at least have, you know, it in a letter format, at least one letter or one page long. So this has been a great process so far. So,
You know, and for folks that are listening and wondering what's so hard about writing a one-page letter, it's not the letter that was hard. It's the culture that led to the conversations that allowed us to put everything in writing that we can all agree on and put our stamp of support behind. And that has been an effort on everybody's part to make sure that we have a healthy culture that allows for important conversations to happen. And as we look back on our time of service here, I hope we all look back with pride on that contribution we made with one another.
I can even take it further than that, Marcia.
yeah, you've been working.
A little bit.
Pull out the archives. Come on.
But I think Janine drafted a letter that really hit the key points that we wanted to achieve as a council. But also we wanted to work with administration to achieve those items. And that's how the success is going to be. I've been on councils where the council and the administrations are at two different ends of the spectrum, and things did not progress in that avenue. We have a job as a council to formulate a budget and to instruct the funds given to the administration. The administration has an opportunity to take those funds and address the needs of the city, and I think that's the important part of it. But we need to work together so that we can achieve the growth and the prosperity and the opportunities of all our citizens to enjoy the city that we live in.
Couldn't agree more.
Just quickly echoing what has just been said, Chairman Losky, and thank you for presenting and representing us in what you just talked about. And you know, I just really kind of echoing what Marcia said and what's been said. I feel very excited and very proud to be a part of this council, and I'm very appreciative of working with the caliber of people that are serving alongside me. So I just thank you for the hard work, for the hard and robust debates that we go through, because we do debate things and we do disagree a lot of times on how we vote. But that's, I think, you know, it's been said before, I think that's going to be you know, something that is this council might be remembered for or identified as a council that can have disagreements and vote our conscience and then go back and work together and in unity where we have to do that. So I really appreciate that. It makes work exciting. So thank you.
Certainly makes these years worthwhile, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks, you guys.
Thanks.
Thank you. I'm going to hand the gavel right back over.
Get rid of it quickly.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for not using the gavel on me.
That's enough time.
That would have been embarrassing. Okay, next item on our agenda is public comments. I think we've got a couple of folks that have really stuck it out tonight. Apologize for the late night, but this is your opportunity to address the council on any topic. I think you know the routine. State your name and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Angel Castillo. I'd like to thank the council for putting all the work into the community survey. I went to a fair amount of them. I think I've only missed a few of them. And the information was fantastic, and it echoes a lot of the feedback that I've been getting through community conversations of my own. I'm really pleased at how you're approaching this project, and I think it's going to be great for the city. So that being said, knowing that you're going to be dialing down into the budget, I'm going to have to bring up the two most very important issues to me that I am going to continue to remind you to focus on. And the first one is I am going to beat that dead 20-year-old horse of the general plan that hasn't been updated. I don't know if all of you are aware of it. We started off with 7 properties, according to Greg Montgomery, that were along mass transit lines that were available to have developments built that would be ideally mixed use residential and commercial because they're on a transit line. We lost one to the Quick Quack Wash, and we just lost another one to 21st and Wall, the 7-Eleven. There's a miracle of hope that maybe that UDOT will deny them a right of way, but if they don't, we've lost another property that could have housed 150 residential units. And there was a developer waiting to buy that. And even if it's not that developer, it should be available to another developer. That means we have 5 more places that can be high density, mixed use commercial on a transit line. And as we talk about mobility being an issue, it's imperative that you put the general plan update. Anything along a transit line needs to be prioritized as far as how it's changed, or we're going to continue to lose these spaces. And the other thing that I will never shut up about is our police force. We lost 28 officers over the last 3 years. We're slated to lose another 10. I'm sure you're reading the papers. Salt Lake City officers are unhappy with their pay rate. We pay less, $10 less than Salt Lake City. We are going to continue to have a problem until we are able to retain our officers, and it is due to salary. It is not due for the love of the city. The officers that work here love working here, but they're really overworked, and they have the highest amount of calls in the state of Utah. We have got to look at where we can refine the existing budget, and I'm going to point my finger right at the RDA development budget. We're asking for an increase from a 1.7 million increase to 17.6 million. And when you look at that number, only a small percentage of that is owned in Ogden homes. The rest of it are commercial properties. There was a time that Ogden needed to act as a developer to make sure that the right developments go happen in that property, but that time is no more. That can be fixed with adjusting the code. Thank you.
Thank you, Angel.
Get the 3 minutes down.
Yep. Mr. Benitez, please state your name and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Sebastian Benitez, 3310 Taylor Avenue again, here in Ogden. You know me, guys. I am coming here usually complaining. I want to apologize to be so rude sometimes. I come here today because I sent to you the letter to think about it, some change we had to make in the city about the budget. I'd like to go quickly. When I hear the mayor, I hear 56 minutes. He present the budget, and I hear about the budget just 2 minutes. The rest was a good commercial for the city, you know. How beautiful is the city and many other things he mentioned before, but how we spend the budget is, I am so worried. I recommend part-time. We have to follow the good samples from different other cities. North Ogden is one, and Layton is the other good one. I hope you follow that recommendation, the part-time job for the 2020-23 period for the mayor. And I recommend to cut bonus. I recommend eliminate the CAO position. I recommend remove every single directors. I recommend increase the salary for the police department, who are going to start to $28 per hour to retain and make better police department. We lose in 2015 38. We was ready to lose 38 police officer. In 2017 we lose 50, and I received a phone call and interview with a couple police officers again. 20 are ready to leave. I am worried about here. I am worried. After I hear so much about the mayor presentation, I don't hear really something the community needed. Across the street, the Bernardowski, we have the broken sidewalk. No, it's not sidewalk. A curb with a big hole for 2 years. It's danger. And the city put one cone for 1 year, and as now they change for the different one, and it's almost a year again. The city need attention. The city needs sidewalk. The children in Wasatch, they need sidewalk. Almost killed my son 2 years ago. Just listen to the community. I love the presentation from you and from you guys. I really appreciate that one. But please, think about it. We have to cut $7.9 million in excessive salaries.
Thanks, Sebastian. Appreciate it. Okay, any other comments from the community? Hi, welcome. Thanks for coming. Thanks for staying.
Oh, yeah. My name is Hunter Moore. I'm a homeowner and resident in Ogden City. In the last state legislative session, House Bill 411 was passed, also known as the Community Renewable Energy Act. It is a bipartisan bill which would allow different cities to collaborate with Rocky Mountain Power to begin using renewable energy programs. This will focus on large-scale programs for those cities and the citizens of those cities who have opted in to it. As a citizen with a vested interest in the future of our great city, I would request that the City Council consider joining in with the other Utah communities, such as Salt Lake City, Summit County, and I believe Moab, a couple others as well, who have utilized House Bill 411 and are working with Rocky Mountain Power on that. The recently established Sustainability Committee could be something for them to look into to give a report on you guys on. But thank you.
Great. Thank you, Hunter. Nice to meet you, by the way. Thanks for coming. That's actually something that we have been aware of. I think Representative Handy worked on that for a long time. He's a good neighboring legislator who worked hard on that, and it's something that we're probably going to look to that Sustainability Committee to give us some advice on. Travis, again?
Yeah.
State your mind.
Some
State
of the
your
flyers
name.
were just mine, and I actually had to back because I was just, that's good. We'll sort it out. I just wanted to say thanks because
Please state your name one more time.
Oh, Travis Pate. Sorry. Just basically watching the budget process, I had the opportunity to be an intern for 2 years, and people said internships don't those last 6 months, and I was like, you paid me, I showed up. And so I had the chance to work on the Junction, the Riverfront Redevelopment Project area, and the Jefferson Avenue Historic District. 3 of the majors for the city, all as an intern. The pre-purchase, the post-purchase inventory of the mall, the surplus property sale, and aided with the demolition contract and documenting that the contractor did their job, even though several big stones this big ended up buried and hidden and later dug out and put out to the airport and ground up. I recognize the extreme efforts that are made. And so I just wanted to say thank you for that. And I think I made myself a couple notes. We basically went from trails to rails and then trains to planes and inner space to outer space with the industries that we have here. And so those are the things to me that I think it's hard to know where you're going unless you know where you've been. And so my emphasis on historic preservation and all those other aspects, we actually had the guy from the New Yorker that came to Salt Lake for one of the preservation conferences, and he says, no one will doubt the significance of this building. And everybody goes, oh yeah, that building. And he says, but no one will doubt the significance of the Empire State Building that took its place. And then in the same vein, I spoke here years ago with regards to, they just built the new David Eccles Second Empire style building next door. And he said, this place will grow. It will need a building twice this size within 10 to 20 years. And 30 years, 40 years later, boom, here we have this majestic structure. And so I think to me, it's a matter of saying, where are we going? Where have we come from? Where are we going? And how do we best bridge that gap to the past? Because that gap to the past is really defining the characteristics and traits that we have in ourselves. It's, the fact that we actually had prisoners of war in Ogden, Utah at BDO, and then later those buildings were reclaimed by Weber State. All 7 of them, and one was Frankenstein to repair the other 6, 3 on campus, 3 in, so to speak, our Jefferson District backyard. And I don't have the releases yet from the university, but just the images of what those buildings were on this site on Porter Avenue. And so that's the dynamic to me. I use this, actually, I volunteer at the jail with the addiction recovery program. So I said, what do you see? And I had people say, I see people in line. I see people holding hands. And I was like, okay, this is a Rorschach test. And then I actually had simply abstracted the coming together of the rails. And so if we can say spike 150 and say, okay, where does that lead us? Okay, well, we need transportation corridor to and from the airport. We need a lot of priorities. We need to not rename it from Hinckley's. That was on the agenda, and then it went off the agenda and came back on the agenda, and I panicked and was trying to put a presentation together to let you know what Robert Hinckley did for not only this community, but the nation. Co-founded ABC Television, the Division of Commerce, founded the Civilian Air Corps. Let's focus and celebrate the heritage. Even just when we might think it still recognizes OG on the international trade. It doesn't matter if we call it Hinckley or we definitely don't rename it. Thanks.
Thanks, Travis.
Oh, no, that's fine. Because that's perfect. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brandon. Appreciate it. Okay, anyone else from the public?
I don't think there's.
I can't see behind the pillars. Brandon, you're a trooper, man. Okay. Comments from the mayor.
Appreciated your presentation. I thought that was well done, and I really loved the coming together and coming with specifics. A lot of times in these positions, you get a dump truck of complaints that rolls up, and you need to go fix all of this, but a lot of times there aren't specifics attached to it. So I appreciate you guys drilling in and going to work on some of that, and those are things that we can go in and address. And so appreciate those that spoke, and other than that, I think you've heard plenty from me tonight.
Thank you. Comments from the council.
I'm always good for at least one comment. So we have 200,000 people coming in, obviously, to our fine city. The best place, I think, to get information is the Visit Ogden website, visitogden.com. Anywhere from self-guided walking tours to how to park and where to park, facts of what you can and cannot bring. Cannot bring backpacks, but you can bring purses, those kind of things. So just if you need to know more, that's probably the best place to get that information right up front, visitogden.com. So.
Okay.
And I hope some of our locals will go down and see it too. So.
Perfect. Anyone else? Well, I think we've got our work.
I just wanted to say thank you, Chair Nadolski, for representing us as well. That was very brave. I took a picture for your daughters so that you can show them, you got up there too.
It's almost as brave as that pitching performance last night. No, we've got our work cut out for us. And Mayor, when you and I last met to talk about, how we move forward most constructively for Ogden, you did ask for specifics, and I did commit, and I think that we owe you that. We owe the community that, and we hope that is helpful. So, thanks for recognizing it. We look forward to working on this for quite some time. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion by.
Just kidding. Sorry.
We have motion by Councilmember Hyatt, second by Councilmember Blair to adjourn. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? This meeting is adjourned.
Now we have the next one.
And one more meeting, and another, and another. Let me know when you're ready. Nicely done. Okay, do you need me to gavel again? Welcome everybody to the Special Redevelopment Agency meeting of May 7th, 2019. Let the record reflect that all board members are present. First item on our agenda is an item of common consent to set the public hearing for fiscal year 2019 budget amendments.
Chair, I'll make a motion that we set the public hearing for proposed resolution 2019-7.
Second.
Motion by council or board member Heyer, seconded by board member Chaburka to adopt proposed resolution 2019-7 as item outlined in common consent. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Next item on our agenda is public comment. If anybody wishes to address the council again, this is your opportunity. Or the board. Thank you. I've cut it a couple times.
I'm going to look at it. Board.
So this was scanned in. So this was actually this was for the RDE.
Could
so
you just state your name?
Sorry, Travis Pate.
It's a different
2546 Jefferson Avenue. I got the chance to walk down to the mall as a child and then also see the whole redevelopment. So I'd actually brought a couple images so he scanned those in, but it was just the progress of the demolition and then progress of the construction of the junction. So it was kind of 880,000 square foot, not even a boondoggle because it served its purpose. It was 95% occupied within the first couple years, and big box retail and online shopping, some of those other things changed the dynamics of the downtown mall. So I congratulate the RDA on having enough foresight to buy that 20 acres. And then my understanding and estimates, by the time the $5 million investment and $1 million started down, so a $6 million investment turned into a $186 million return on the investment. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Travis. Okay, anyone else wish to address the board? Okay. Next item on our agenda, comments from the executive director.
Nothing to add at this time. Thank you.
Comments from board members.
Must be budget session or
It's getting
season.
late.
It's very late. I'm supposed to be asleep in my recliner already.
It's the budget session, right?
Okay, I will entertain a motion to adjourn into closed executive session for one of the reasons listed on the agenda.
So move. Second.
We have a motion by council board member Lopez, second by board member Heyer to adjourn into closed executive session. This is a roll call vote.
Board Member Blair.
Aye.
Board Member Heyer.
Aye.
Board Member Lopez.
Aye.
Board Member Stevens.
Aye.
Board Member White.
Aye.
Vice Chair Chaburka.
Aye.
Chair Nadolski.
Aye, that passes. We will adjourn to closed session. Just a reminder that we will be adjourning from this meeting in the closed executive session. So thank you for sticking it out with us, you guys.